LTNs, I'll be joined by activist Anna Brummy Butcher, who's seen his profits pared to the bone thanks to the hated LTN near him. And despite pleading poverty, the Labour Party has managed to cook up £1 billion for free school lunches for hundreds of thousands of British kids whose parents are on benefits. But there's no such thing as a free lunch, so today's debate is this: why should British taxpayers foot the bill? And today marks the 81st anniversary of D-Day, the Allied landings on the Normandy beaches. And to mark this moving occasion, GBNews will be live from the battlefields, the war graves and the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Bayeux, a French town central to the Allied liberation of Europe from the Nazis. And that's all coming on today's show. Welcome to the show. Have we got news for you today? Donald Trump, once again, has gone nuclear in America with a 12-country travel ban. He tried this before, back in 2018, with a ban on certain Muslim countries. He was challenged in the courts, and there will be legal challenges aplenty this time, I'm sure of that. But what if, buried somewhere in here, there's a sensible idea about how to control British borders? What if we looked at the data of those most likely to come to Britain and commit crimes, sex crimes, violent crimes, thefts, be drug dealers? What if we look at those most likely to come into our country illegally? What if we put on top of that the benefits, the countries most likely to claim benefits in the United Kingdom and pay the least tax? If we added all that together, might we get the basis of a sensible immigration policy? It's a no-brainer, except the government haven't done that work. I have. With Rob Bates at the Centre for Migration Control, I'm about to drop on you what I think is the way forward for a sensible, points-based immigration policy in this country to finally get us out of this mess. Thank you to a little bit of inspiration from that man, Donald Trump. You'll not want to miss it. Stick around, gbnews.com/your say is the way to get in touch. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and a very good afternoon to you. 3 minutes past 3, the top story. More pensioners will receive winter fuel payments this year, but the government has ruled out a return of universal support. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, says that means testing will be raised, with full details expected, she says, as soon as possible. Possibly, we understand, at next week's spending review. The payments, worth up to £300, were limited last year to those on pension credit, cutting eligibility from 11 million to just 1.5 million. Pensions Minister Torsten Bell says fairness is key and the aim is to include more low-income pensioners who missed out. But he confirmed there is no prospect of a universal winter payment. 500,000 more children in England are set to get free school meals from next September under plans announced by the government. Any child whose parents receive universal credit will be eligible regardless of income, removing the current £7,400 earnings cap. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says the change could lift 100,000 children out of hardship. The move is backed by £1 billion in funding, but campaigners say much more needs to be done, including scrapping the two-child benefit cap. Further details are expected in next week's spending review. Well, the Prime Minister spoke earlier, and Sir Keir Starmer said it's a down payment on child poverty.
I would say this is a down payment on child poverty. We've got a task force. It'll come out with a strategy. I want to get to the root causes of child poverty. One of the greatest things the last Labour government did was to drive down child poverty. I'm determined we will do that. Today is a down payment on that, but it also goes, as I say, with breakfast clubs already being rolled out, with childcare provision, which we're rolling out, and of course school uniforms, which can be really expensive for parents. So it needs to be seen within that group of measures. But yes, it's a down payment on what I want to do in relation to child poverty.
The search for Madeleine McCann has entered its third day in Portugal as investigators continue combing land near Praia de Luz, where she vanished 18 years ago. Well, our national reporter Charlie Peters is in the Algarve for us, where German and Portuguese teams are now scouring scrubland and abandoned buildings.
Well, it's now or never for German and Portuguese authorities as they continue their search for a body or any forensic evidence that could link Christian Bruckner, the prime suspect, to the disappearance and murder of Madeleine McCann. And on the dramatic clifftop shrubland behind me, a 120-acre area, they are continuing a pattern of searching we've seen develop over the last 3 days, where shovels, strimmers and chainsaws remove foliage and rubble before an excavator and a scanner, which allows the search teams to search 15 foot under the ground, move in for more targeted digging. Now, they have over 21 plots of land to search, but we understand that on this third and potentially final day of the search, they will be looking in just a handful of dilapidated farmhouses, abandoned buildings linked to that prime suspect. They need that forensic evidence because Christian Bruckner, as it stands, is set to be released from prison on unrelated matters in September. He could soon be a free man.
Charlie Peters there, live for us in the Algarve. Well, Donald Trump has signed a sweeping travel ban on citizens from 12 countries, saying it's to protect Americans from dangerous foreign actors. 7 other nations face partial restrictions, with the full ban taking effect on the 9th of June. He said Sunday's Colorado attack showed the extreme dangers of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted. The move delivers on a 2024 campaign pledge and is expected to face legal challenges. Trump's also suspended foreign students from joining Harvard for 6 months and ordered a probe into Joe Biden's time in office. Here, a 15-year-old boy and 13-year-old girl are due today to be sentenced for killing 8-year-old dog walker Bim Kohli in a Leicestershire park. The teenagers were convicted of manslaughter in April after footage showed Mr. Kohli being beaten and racially abused. He was found by his children with a broken neck and fractured ribs and died in hospital the next day. The boy was cleared for murder, and Mr. Kohli's death has since sparked outrage, with the court hearing he was left dying, injured for hours. And women using weight loss jabs like Mounjaro and Wegovy are being warned they must use effective contraception. The UK's medicines regulator says jabs can now reduce how well the pill works and shouldn't be used during pregnancy or while trying for a baby. It follows around 40 reports of unintended pregnancies with common side effects like vomiting and delayed stomach emptying affecting pill absorption. Women are advised to use condoms or switch to longer-term contraception like the coil while on the jabs. The warning also comes as demand for so-called skinny jabs continues to soar across the UK. Those are the latest headlines for now. I'll be back with you in half an hour. Now, though, let's get over to Martin.
Thank you, Sam. What a show we've got ahead. Let's get cracking, because Donald Trump has signed an order banning people from 12 countries from even entering the USA at all. And those on the list are Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo, Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Libya, Sudan and Somalia. And the US president said there are extreme dangers of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted. So should we follow suit here in the United Kingdom? Well, joining me now in studio is our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, once again, Donald Trump has gone nuclear. He did this before in 2018 when he imposed a travel ban on a list of 7 majority Muslim nations. We've just been through what the nations, who they are. What are the reasons Donald Trump is giving for imposing this?
Well, yes, he did this last night, and it goes a lot further, as you say, than 2018, because he's got total ban on 12 countries and a partial ban on 7 others. He says we don't want them, and he's fundamentally saying that there are, to quote him, extreme dangers posed to our country by the entry to our country of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted. He goes on to say we will not let what has happened in Europe happen in America. Now, of course, the immediate trigger for this is this alleged anti-Semitic attack in Boulder, Colorado at the weekend, where a guy threw petrol bombs on people in a march for the Israeli hostages, including an 88-year-old Holocaust survivor. But talking about Europe, now I was sent to cover the Munich Security Conference for GBNews back in February. It also coincided with a terrorist attack in the centre of Munich. A car drove into a crowd. 2 people died, 39 were injured. The person who committed it was a 24-year-old Afghan asylum seeker. 2 days later, while I was still in Munich, the city still reeling from what had happened, there came the news that just a couple of 100 miles south, in the south of Austria, a 14-year-old boy had been murdered, 5 wounded. Again, it was a 23-year-old Syrian asylum seeker that had done it. Talking to people in Munich, what really shocked me was that it was sort of, although they were shocked, it had become almost something that just happens again, because Germany particularly, and lots of European countries, but Germany particularly has had a considerable number of these attacks. And I think for all that there will be many millions of people horrified by what Donald Trump is doing, I think there will be a lot of people who will support the sentiment of trying to keep American people safe.
And it's worth pointing out the man who's been charged with that assault in Colorado is Egyptian, not on this list. He did say Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism. Somalia, again identified as a terrorist safe haven. Haiti, a higher likelihood to try and overstay visas, and hundreds of thousands of illegals under Joe Biden. Eritrea, there's no faith whatsoever in how visas are giving out in Eritrea. So there's a lot of detail to dig in, but what I want to do now is try and extrapolate about how this might work in the United Kingdom. I'm joined now to discuss this is the Director of the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Rob, welcome to the show. You and I have been talking about the propensity of foreign nationals to commit crime, to claim benefits, the nations that come into Britain illegally. We've been talking about this for months. It's Groundhog Day. Today, Rob Bates, I asked you to put all this data together to see if there's a possibility to see patterns in the nations who are abusing British hospitality, breaking into the country, not paying much in tax and claiming a lots of money in benefits. I think we've got something truly sensational here. I think we've got the beginnings of what could be a sensible, points-based, country-based immigration policy. Rob, if we had people like me and you running the shop, we might be in a bit of a better state. I digress. Let's start at the beginning. Let's walk our viewers through some of your figures from the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates. Let's start with some work you did on sex crime. You specifically looked at the foreign nationals more likely than Brits to commit sex crimes. We've got a graphic on screen. Rob, talk us through it.
Yeah, I think this was probably the most heinous finding that we did produce when we produced our crime statistics, because as we know, foreign nationals as a cohort as a whole are more likely to be committing these offences and convicted of these offences. But I think when you actually look at the nationalities that are topping this list and you look at the picture more broadly by region as well, it becomes very clear that individuals coming from certain nations, whether that's in the Middle East or Africa, have a far higher propensity to actually be committing one of the most heinous crimes an individual can commit in this country. And of course, unfortunately, we have at the moment an immigration system that makes no effort at all to delineate between whether that's a pensioner from Luxembourg or a young man from Afghanistan. And as we see here, you know, an individual from Afghanistan is 22 times more likely to be convicted of a sexual offence than a Brit. Unfortunately, our post-Brexit immigration system introduced by the Tories did not take any of these considerations into account when actually drafting what our our points-based system would look like. And unfortunately, we have effectively an open door that doesn't do anything to actually keep the British people safe.
Rob Bates, I want to rattle through these because next you've got violent crime. There's some astonishing findings here. Talk us through quickly, if you could, what you found in terms of violent crime and the propensity of foreign nationals to commit them.
So again, they're roughly, 40%, I believe, of foreign national as a whole, as a cohort. But we see certain nationalities, again, far ahead of where the British average actually is. You can see there, Congo, Somalia and Afghanistan are far ahead of where we are. And it's a similar picture, whether it's drug crime or robbery or possession of weapons as well. There's a very clear pattern, and certain nationalities appear in each of these graphs.
That's right. And the Congolese, 11 times more likely to commit violent crimes versus the British-based population. 59 nationalities more likely to be convicted of violence in Britain than Brits. Let's quickly now go on to illegal entries, if we could. You've got some fascinating data about the propensity of nationalities to come here illegally. Talk us through that.
So this chart here is the individuals that have been detected breaking into the UK between 23 and the first quarter of 2025. And again, if you look at some of the countries on the left-hand side of that chart, you see, again, they're very much in concordance with those that are on the other graphs when it comes to crime. Of course, there are other ways that an individual becomes an illegal migrant into the UK, and that's overstaying visas. And in that case, you're far more likely to see those bigger countries, the ones with a far higher population in Britain, whether that's the Pakistan or the Bangladeshi community as well, coming into the UK and overstaying visas as well. Right. But these are the kind of things that we do need to be taking into consideration when drafting our immigration system. We can't have a one-size-fits-all immigration system, and that's hopefully what Trump has fired the starting gun over here, and we'll begin to have a conversation about making sure that we do actually discriminate at our borders. The very nature of a border is to be discriminatory, so the idea that we have a one-size-fits-all approach is ridiculous.
OK, Rob, that's the drum roll. Now let's have the cymbal crash. You've put all that data into your computer, you've punched a button, and you've come out with a list of what we could have, not as a ban list, but a basis of an immigration policy, country by country. Let's get that on the screen now, Rob Bates, and talk us through the 12 nations that should be setting off alarm bells if people are coming to the UK. Talk us through the running order.
So, yeah, this is a list that takes into consideration all those crime rates, the illegal entry, and the propensity of an individual once here to begin claiming benefits and draining the British taxpayer as well. Again, Albania always seems to be up in the top 5 of those lists. Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, these are all Middle Eastern countries and have a very strong similarity with Trump's list in that regard. We have slight difference to Trump's list in that we have a particular problem with Vietnamese people coming in, committing crime and entering the country illegally, which is perhaps not the same case in America. We have also Congo and Syria, again, both on Trump's list. And these are the kind of decisions that politicians could take if they weren't so stymied by bits of legislation that had been introduced, such as the Equality Act, that frankly completely prohibit us from actually taking these decisions on our border.
So, Rob, here's what they could do if they were sensible and they allowed data and not zealotry to drive our border system. They could look at all the data you've just put down there and they could say, do you know what? If you're coming in from Albania, we're going to put you in a red lane. We're not going to bar you. We're not going to go full Trump, but we're going to be much more meticulous about processing your claim because the data tells us you could be much more likely to commit crime and to be a drug dealer. Not everybody, but the data never lies. Rob Bates, I put it to you, if we had that kind of a system and we were much more rigorous about the entry process, we, for example, could say, do you know what, we'll let you in if you're from one of these countries, but if you commit any crime in your first 12 months, you're straight out of the country. By the way, you're not claiming benefits at all for the first, I don't know, let's say 2 years, and things like that. Rob Bates, we might have half a hope of getting ourselves out of this immigration mess.
Well, look, I'd perhaps be a bit tougher than you on the deportation. I think if you're a foreign national and you commit a crime at any point in your visa process, you need to be removed. I think we also need to make it far harder for individuals to claim benefits. I think the current system where they can begin claiming, in some cases, almost immediately, but predominantly after 5 years is, again, far too lenient as well. So we can actually begin to remove some of those pull factors and some of those facets of our immigration system that make us soft touch Britain and begin actually being able to repel those individuals that we don't want in our country without having to turn them away. I think in general, we do need to recognise that it's important that the Home Office is using this data and is taking this into consideration when processing every single visa application. Again, as I've said, we can't have a one-size-fits-all approach that does not discriminate between someone that we know is more likely to be an economic benefit from, say, the European nation or the Anglosphere versus someone that's coming from the Middle East and far more likely to pose a danger or claim benefits.
And Rob Bates, I know you don't like to blow your own trumpet, so I'm going to do it for you. Each one of these reports that you've done, you've had to work around lots of barriers from the Home Office, from the government. They don't want you to have this data. Police forces don't. The Department of Work and Pensions doesn't. The Home Office doesn't. You've got this data. You've cross-tabulated it against population levels. You've got this data yourself. You put a huge amount of spade work into this. Thank you for that. And you've put it all together now. And I think it's the most common sense thing I've seen in many, many a moon. And I know that they watch this at Downing Street. If you're watching this, get in touch with Rob Bates. This fella is a man with a plan. This could help to get us out of this quandary. Rob Bates, I want to thank you. I think it's peerless. It's the best work I've seen on this in Britain. You're an absolute legend. Rob Bates, thank you very much for joining us today on the show. Cheers. Let's get some reaction now from the political commentator Matthew Stadler. Matthew, always a pleasure to have your company. You're no doubt listening in there with bated breath. Remember, facts aren't racist. These are the facts. Surely this is the basis of a sensible filtration process to make sure we get the best quality immigration into Britain and we try and cut down on some of the social problems.
Martin, great to see you, and sorry I can't be in the studio with you today. I watching that, indeed I was watching, and I couldn't work out whether you were interviewing the chap or whether you were celebrating him. But I suspect you'll be interviewing me, and I've got to say I've got some things to say against what I've just seen, so I'll try and rattle through them. First of all, like you and Rob, I want British citizens, and everyone indeed in this country, to be safe. Of course I do. I'm a father of two, apart from anything else. Secondly, you say the stats never lie. But of course, you've heard that old phrase, haven't you? Lies, damned lies, and statistics. And actually, when you showed one of those tables to me before, after that, because it caught me a little bit on the hop, I went to go and show it to a very preeminent statistician, a professor who uses stats in their career. And as far as he was concerned, he did some debunking of that. So I think we've got to be a little bit careful. Don't forget, Rob, who you've just celebrated, is part of a think tank that really wants to crack down on immigration.
You're going to have to do a bit better than shooting the messenger, mate. Answer the message. The data is there. You can pick it apart. Yeah. The reason, Matthew, hang on. The reason we have to do workarounds on this data is because the British government won't give us the data. They do in Denmark, they do in the Netherlands, they do in Germany, and the pattern is the same as you just saw in the British workaround. If they're so confident we're wrong, give us the real data. When we get that, I guarantee you it's going to be pretty much of the same framework. So don't attack the messenger, address the message.
Are you suggesting, Martin, that the figures you've just shown us are not based on real data?
I'm suggesting that they are based on real data, but they have to be worked around because you have to do freedom of information requests to police forces, to the Department of Work and Pension. It's very technical. It takes a long time. It's quite dull. You then have to cross-tabulate against population levels from the census data, and that is probably out of date. But it's all we've got. It's the best fit. And we ask the Home Office time after time after time after time to give us the data. They say they don't hold it. And that's the point. So we're doing a workaround. Putting that to one side, do you think there is a thesis, though, in using this as a quality control system for border control?
Not on the face of it, no. And I'll just give you one example why you've got to be careful with this sort of data, because people coming from certain countries may be much younger, say, than the general British population. But I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of the statistics themselves because I'm not a statistician myself and I haven't got the sums with me. All I'm saying is, and as a journalist, I'm sure you'd agree with me, of course it matters where this information is coming from. And I'm just making sure everyone realises that Rob comes from a think tank that is hostile to immigration. Now, let me take... You're not answering the question. Your point, Martin. Martin,
you're not answering the question. You're attacking the messenger and not answering the message. Answer the blooming question.
No. On the face of it, no. Let me deal with the Trump travel ban. Let me deal with the Trump travel ban. Let me deal with the Trump travel ban.
I want to talk to you about this. So you don't think that the fact that the data shows and proves us in multiple countries all across continental Europe that Afghani nationals are much more likely to commit sex crimes in Sweden, in Netherlands, in Germany, in Denmark, and in the United Kingdom, you don't think that's a basis of being more strict about who we allow in from Afghanistan, yes or no?
I'm very sceptical, as I've just made clear, about the data. But of course, everyone who comes to this country should be vetted. And I accept that one of the problems about people who come here illegally, people who seek asylum, for example, by coming over here on small boats, it is obviously, by definition, very difficult to vet them if they have thrown away any ID. I acknowledge that there is an issue on the channel, and it is not just on the channel. That is one means by which people try to get into this country illegally. For example, overstaying visas, which takes me to the Trump ban. And as you correctly pointed out, Martin, the suspect in the horrific attack in Colorado, and he is at the moment just a suspect, is believed to be Egyptian.
Correct.
And yet Donald Trump, when he said that this attack underscored the need for this sort of ban, did not include Egypt on his travel ban, which to my mind seems peculiar, to say the least, and perhaps to undermine the thrust of his ban and possibly the motives. This is important. Let me just quickly make this point.
Yeah, you got a quick 30 seconds. I'm being told we've got to go. Go on.
I would be very concerned about whether Trump might start banning Brits. Because, as you know, Martin, we have homegrown Islamist terror in this country, and we have homegrown far-right terror in this country. So where will he stop? And should should we ban Americans coming into this country, given how many mass murderers they have in America? You see the problem with this sort of ban?
No, I don't see the problem. That's an absurd correlation. You know it. Matthew Sadler, we have to leave it there. We seem to run out of time. It is always a pleasure, though, to have your company on GB News. Now, still to come, the Attorney General has come under fire for defending terrorists. Is it time for him to get the boot? I'm Martin Daubney on GB News, Business News Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock, only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 3:30 with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, the Attorney General has come under fire once again for defending known terrorists, including the likes of Shamima Begum and 5 al-Qaeda-linked terrorists. Now, critics have questioned his decision to represent enemies of the state. So today, we're asking whether he was right to do so. Does everyone have a right to defence? Well, of course they do. But I'm now joined by the commentator at the Mail on Sunday, Dan Hodges. Dan, once again, thanks for coming. You wrote an excellent piece on this. There's meant to be this thing called the cab rank rule, where they just take the cases as they come in order. You're saying perhaps that's not the case with the Lord.
No, absolutely. I mean, the cab rank rule, I mean, is basically not... Everybody within the law knows it's not actually a rule at all. It's a principle that barristers are supposed to adhere to take the next case on the rank, as it were. Yeah. But in practice, that's something that everybody knows is not adhered to. I mean, we had, obviously, the most high-profile example was 2 years ago, when a series of barristers stood up and said they would no longer represent clients who were involved, in their view, in contributing to global warming, and would no longer engage in cases which involved the prosecution of what they regarded as peaceful climate change protesters. And there are numerous examples of that. Now, obviously, everybody has a right to a defence, but my argument, and the thing I was taking issue with in the article, was this idea that Hermer had no discretion about the clients he represented, because everybody knows, in practice, barristers have a wide degree of discretion over the people they represent. And you're saying, you draw a fascinating list, his pet projects, if you like, seem to be reflected in the clients he's taking on, which seems to intimate he might be a bit more of an activist than perhaps he'd let on. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily... I think he is an activist, and he's been described as an activist, and I don't think he would necessarily dispute that. The point is, he is someone who has very clear political views, very clear ideological views. He would say very clear principle moral views. Fine, I haven't got a problem with that. What I've got a problem with is the dishonesty around this, the idea that he just somehow, coincidentally, just by chance, happened to stumble across these clients. Now, as I said, people have a right to a defence. In many instances, these were people who weren't mounting a defence, but were themselves attempting to sort of bring a prosecution against or litigation against the government. But the point is, in private practice, it's fine for him to have his views, and in fact, as a private barrister, it's fine for his views to remain private. But he's not private anymore. He's now the most senior law officer in the land and making decisions on behalf of the British people. And that asks the question, if the most senior lawmaker in the land, who, by the way, compared leaving the ECHR to 1930s Germany, clear reference there to the Third Reich, also happens to select an ISIS beetle, Shamima Begum, Jerry Adams, 5 al-Qaeda-linked terrorists, is this guy fit to represent the country like this, or should he get the job? I'd separate the two issues. I think the people who he represented before he was Attorney General are not themselves... That does not preclude him, in my view, from becoming Attorney General. Yeah. The issue, however, is what are the decision-making processes he's making now? So, firstly, we need transparency in his views and honesty about his views. And the second thing is the decisions he makes and the speeches he makes and the positions adopts once he's in position are relevant. And obviously, his comparison between people who have legitimate concerns about the ECHR and comparing them to Nazis, that, in my own view, would of itself be potentially a second offence. Yes. But what's even more serious is it gives an insight into the decision-making processes that he is using when he, as I say, engages in legal decisions on behalf of the British people. Dan Hodges, I think you absolutely nailed it. Thank you once again for coming to the studio. It's a pleasure, as always, to have your company. Now, a spokesman for the Attorney General's office said this: it is a feature and cornerstone of our legal system that legal professionals operate the cab rank rule when it comes to clients, and barristers do not associate themselves with their clients' opinions. There's more still to come between now and 4 o'clock. Keir Starmer may have signed over the Chagos deal, but the Chagosians are not giving up yet. They're going to the United Nations. But first, as your headlines, here's Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you at 35 minutes past 3. The top story: more pensioners will receive winter fuel payments this year, but the government has ruled out a return of universal support. Chancellor Rachel Reeves says the means test will be raised, with full details expected as soon as possible, she says, possibly at next week's spending review. The payments, worth up to £300, were limited last year to those on pension credit, cutting eligibility from 11 million to just 1.5 million. Pensions Minister Torsten Bell says fairness is key and the aim is to include more low-income pensioners who missed out. But he confirmed, quote, there is no prospect of a universal winter payment. 500,000 more children in England will get free school meals from next September under plans announced by the government today. Any child whose parents receive universal credit will be eligible, regardless of income. That removes the current £7,400 earning cap. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says the change could lift 100,000 children out of hardship. The move is backed by a £1 billion fund, but campaigners say much more needs to be done, including scrapping the two-child benefit cap. Further details are expected in next week's spending review. Well, breaking news from Sheffield this afternoon that a 20-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder. That is after a 16-year-old boy was hit and killed by a car in the city. CCTV footage showed the vehicle mounting the pavement and hitting the teenager, who was described by police as an entirely innocent bystander. The grey Audi also struck an e-bike rider before fleeing the scene. 3 other people have been arrested on suspicion of assisting an offender. All 4 remain in custody as detectives continue their investigations. And a 15-year-old boy and 13-year-old girl are due to be sentenced this afternoon for killing 8-year-old dog walker Bim Kohli in a Leicestershire park. The teenagers were convicted of manslaughter in April after footage showed Mr Kohli being beaten and racially abused. He was found by his children with a broken neck and fractured ribs and sadly died in hospital the next day. The boy was cleared of murder by the jury, and Mr Kohli's death has since sparked outrage with the court, hearing he was left injured for hours. We're also just hearing from inside the courtroom that the judge is due to return any moment now. The girl in question resuming her position in the dock, and the boy and security staff also returning. So we will keep across that sentencing for you and bring you the sentencing remarks as soon as they happen live here on GB News. Those are the latest headlines for now. A full roundup at 4 o'clock. Now, though, we can head back to Martin.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through this evening and overnight, further spells of rain, some drier and clearer skies where it'll feel a little cooler, but for many it is going to be a wet start as we head into Friday morning. Back to this evening though, and yes, there are going to be some frontal systems dragging in some rain at times, eventually clearing its way to the southeast, but there is some rain moving across the English Channel that might just push up across some southern counties for a time before it eventually clears eastwards. Then we're left with a mix of clear skies but also further outbreaks of rain just pushing into the west, leading to quite a wet start across parts of Lancashire, Cheshire and also parts of England and Wales. But across the southeast, Scotland, Northern Ireland, a little dry here and under clear skies, feeling a little cooler and fresher by the time we reach Friday morning. Now, still spells of rain shifting their way eastwards, fairly similar to what we had to this morning, turning quite heavy and once again quite blustery at times. A little drier across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, but still once again can't rule out a risk of showers, particularly around any western areas where it's still fairly breezy through the course of the morning. Now, any outbreaks of rain eventually clearing away quite quickly through the morning. Behind it, a little brighter. Once again, a risk of showers. These could be heavy at times, but it's likely to be a slightly drier day across central and southern parts. A few more sunny spells breaking through, and that means it's going to feel a little warmer compared to this afternoon as well. But across Scotland, Northern Ireland, temperatures around, if not just a touch below average for the time of year. So once again, a little cooler in these areas. And into the evening, we'll still see that continuation of showers moving through into the west, bringing longer spells of rain by the time we reach Saturday morning. And this is something we need to keep an eye on, a chance we could see some thundery downpours on Saturday. That means Sunday is going to be the drier day of the weekend. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Road users are advised to exercise caution on the A9 Dornoch Bridge due to high winds impacting driving conditions. Rerouting is necessary as the A494 between Mould Wrexham Road and Mould Ruthin Road is shut for resurfacing work. In Durham, the A19 southbound between the A1086 and the A181 is sealed off due to a road traffic incident. On the trains, disruptions on the Avanti West Coast line affect services between Manchester Piccadilly and Stockport. Additionally, the London Overground is experiencing delays through Norwood Junction. Stay up to date at gbnews.com for more travel news.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Time is 3:41. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here in GB News. Now, Sir Keir Starmer formally signed an agreement to hand over the Chagos Islands last month after a last-minute injunction to halt the move failed. But the two Chagosian activists that mounted this challenge, they are not giving up yet. They've launched another legal challenge this time. They've submitted a formal legal communication to the United Nations Human Rights Committee. Here is somebody who does not know the meaning of defeat, who never gives up. I'm joined now by that Chagosian, Beatrice Pompey. Beatrice, pleasure to have your company. You were responsible for that 11th hour intervention, which gave that glimmer of hope. And now you're going all the way to the top. You're going to the UN. Tell us more.
Good evening. Yes, hi. We are going, we're not going to give up fighting for our rights. And we have filed this legal individual communication with the UN, Human Rights, me and Bernadette Gigas, to fight against the violation of our human rights, me and all the Chagosians that supported us. So we are asking to be seen as humans.
And do you think that will have any gravitas with the United Nations? I mean, they've been accused of being political in the past. They've been accused of not necessarily being in Britain's favour. Do you think that they will listen to you?
Well, I think we have a good chance of them backing us up. Yes.
And on what basis? Because I remember, like before, your appeal at the Supreme Court, that was because you were never consulted and you believe your human rights may be violated if you're enforced to return to Mauritius, where, of course, you could be arrested for your political beliefs. So is your plea to the United Nations along a similar line?
Yes, we are. We are asking for the same thing, to be consulted. We were never consulted. We never took part in any discussion that they had with Mauritius. We never supported this decision. And we also want the right to return and the self-determination rights.
And may I ask you, Beatrice, about the mood among the Chagosian community? Because one thing I've been blown away by you guys right from the very beginning is that no matter how many setbacks you seem to suffer, you always seem to be so upbeat and buoyant and positive. Like, how do you do that? Can I please have a glass of whatever you're drinking?
I think we support each other any way we can. There's always a big, the community is always supporting us. The elderly, the natives, which is much more elderly than me now, they're still in support. They talk and they give us the strength to go on. And we're doing it for them as well.
And are you seeing, we're hearing of, there are more recent arrivals, fresh arrivals coming to the United Kingdom because people are fearful, perhaps, of this transition. What are the people that are coming to Britain recently telling you?
I don't really have direct communication with them because I'm not really in line with communicating directly with the people coming from Mauritius, because I come from the Seychelles. I still welcome their views, welcome to support them in any way I can, but they are in support of us as well.
Well, it's going to be quite the legal battle. And one thing I always say about you guys, you don't know the meaning of defeat. You never give up. You're battling on. You know, you've got such incredible fighting spirit. And now it's going all the way to the UN. Thank you so much, Chagos Beatrice Pompey. Pleasure to have your company as ever. Now, moving on, in Leicester Crown Courts, Judge Mr Justice Turner is beginning sentencing 2 teenagers who were both convicted of manslaughter in April after killing 80-year-old pensioner and dog walker Bim Kohli. And we'll cross back to this when the judge delivers the outcome later in the show. You with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Sitting here very patiently, very quietly in the studio observing everything is Elon Musk's father, Errol, and he's got so much to talk about today. Errol, a very good morning to you. Very, very good to see you. Thank you for sitting through that. As you can see, news is happening all the time.
I'm very impressed.
Yeah, we're dealing with lots of things. What about, first of all, Nigel Farage is a man. Do you know Nigel Farage? Have you met Nigel Farage?
Yes, no, I haven't met him, no.
No. Prime Minister in waiting. We've done an exclusive poll and people say we quite would like him as Prime Minister. But he's sort of changing his policies. He's talking about now spending money for couples to have children. He's talking about giving the winter fuel allowance, which has been taken away from pensioners, giving that back. What are your observances on that?
Of Nigel?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I did say a few months ago when I was watching the various things going on in the UK that I thought he would make a great cabinet minister and not particularly a great prime minister. And that was actually a little bit of a way of... My son did the same with him, a little way of sort of putting a little bit of fire under him. And so he's certainly responded well and pushed himself forward with much more strength. And so we look at him in a much better light now.
Right.
So I'd say yes, no, he's all right.
He's all right. And could he be that Prime Minister in waiting now?
You know what he's showing? He's showing his mettle, you know. Previously, he was a little bit too accommodating, I would say. And he stopped being accommodating. And that's what people want.
Okay.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:49. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, it's the end of the road for Lambeth's controversial low-traffic neighbourhood in West Dulwich. A High Court ruling says it was unlawful and there is no appeal and no delay. And that they may also be ordered to pay back £1 million in fines. And here's the big question. Is it time for LTNs across the country to follow suit? Could LTNs be reaching the end of the road? Well, I'm joined now by a resident of North London, Brian Leveson, whose 20-year-old son, Zach, has cerebral palsy and is quadriplegic. And I want to know, Brian, if you could tell us about the impact that LTNs have had on your life and on your son's life.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good afternoon, Martin. When you've got somebody like my son who travels in a wheelchair as the main form of transport, and the LTNs are introduced, and all of a sudden there's this increase in traffic on the main roads, and you're limited to where you can go. Those journeys become harder, they become longer, they become more costly. You're having to travel further to get around the LTN, and he is somebody who's got curvature of the spine, his hips need to be looked after. So if he's sitting in his wheelchair longer, That's harmful to him. Okay, but then they also become more costly. A lot of the time we use black taxis to get around because they are the only really truly accessible form of public transport. And the journeys they have to make, again, they haven't got an exemption. They're stuck in the same traffic and they're taking that much longer. And you watch the meter, it just ticks round and round. And you think, I don't know if I can make that journey. And I've no doubt there are some people who, you know, when they talk about the traffic evaporating, I bet you there are some people, the reason why that traffic is evaporating is they're not making that journey anymore. You know, they can't afford it, cost of living crisis, all these other things that we hear about, and they're stuck. And they're not going out, they're not being part of social life, and things are deteriorating.
And Brian, may I ask you what the downfall, as it were, of the LTN in West Dulwich was the fact that Lambeth Council held a consultation before it was installed and 2/3 of local residents rejected it. And yet they overrode that decision and put it in anyway. Where you live, was there a similar consultation and what did the people around there say?
It is a very similar story. So overall, there was no clear-cut support. There's 3 LTNs. There's no clear-cut support. But overwhelmingly, people who are older, people who are disabled very much rejected it. The council should be listening to those people. They make a very big deal about, you know, quality of opportunity, about access. But essentially, they just go, yes, we've heard what you've had to say, and we're going to introduce them anyway. And that's where we are. You know, all those impacts that we hear about, you know, and they are very much designed. The architects of the LTNs here in North London was very clear. They are designed to make journeys harder because they want to force people out of cars. So, yes, you know, it is going to happen like that.
And you see, Brian, the problem with that is that if you have a zealotry-based transport system, and you look, everybody wants clean air, right? We can all agree clean air is a good thing. But I put it to you, I live near this LTN in Dulwich, and there are multiple ones around me, and the traffic on the main roads is gridlocked now, continually belching out pollution. And my daughter goes to a school on that main road, and I put it to you, the pollution, you can taste it on the main road. It might be quiet around the back roads, but on the main roads, it's bedlam.
They are very much a policy that has supported an elite few. Those who live in those quieter roads, you know, when the council did their review, their headline was 50% cut in traffic. 50% cut in traffic for those elite few living on those roads, not for all the other residents, not for the residents on the North Circular or the South Circular, those other roads, because this evaporation this wishful evaporation just hasn't happened. And remarkably, in North London, and the official review from the council, cycling numbers have gone down. That was one of the main stated aims, was to increase cycling, and that's gone down. You know, they are a failure every step of the way. They're a failure.
And Brian, may I ask you, may you be inspired in your neighbourhood, now you see what's happened in Lambeth, may you be inspired to try and get a legal case going? I think they had a crowdfunder to get going.
Oh, I can imagine that the number of people, because it's such a wide area that it covers, will very much be closely looking at the case, looking at the detail of the legal ruling, and having a think and looking back at how it was implemented here. And is there indeed an argument to take it back and say, you know, this does need a proper legal review?
OK, well, Brian Leveson, thank you for joining us, and good luck to you and your beautiful son, Zach, and I wish you all the very best. Thanks for joining us today on GB News.
Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure, thank you. Now let's cross live now to Leicester Crown Court, where Judge Mr Justice Turner is sentencing 2 teenagers who were both convicted of manslaughter in April after killing 80-year-old pensioner and dog walker Bim Kohli.
Mitigating features. 1, you have no previous convictions. 2, despite some earlier bad reports about your behaviour in the children's home, more recently you are said to have behaved positively and well. You've applied yourself to your studies and have been helpful to the other children. 3, you have issues with your mental health which are set out in detail in the pre-sentence report, which I have read. 4, your life at home has not given you the best start. Your mother has supported you, but there have been many issues which are again detailed in the pre-sentence report and which I have fully considered. I am unable to give much weight to what is said about your remorse. I'm sure you regret that Mr. Kohli died because of what you did to him, but you still say it wasn't your fault. It was your fault, and the sooner you realise this, the better. Had you been an adult, even concentrating as I must on your personal circumstances, the balance of aggravating and mitigating features would have resulted in an increase from the starting point to 14 years custody. I reduced this to 7 years to reflect your age and level of maturity and in conformity with the sentencing guideline. You'll get credit for the time you've already spent in custody. This is one of those rare cases in which long-term detention is the only way to deal with you. A community order would simply not begin to reflect the seriousness of what you did. I now turn to D2. I have to consider the same guidelines as I did with D1. In your case, I consider that your offending fell into the medium category of culpability. You intended that Mr. Kohli should suffer some harm, but not that D1 should attack him with the force which he used near to the exit of the park. You continued to film what happened after Mr. Kohli had been forced to the ground and humiliated. It was obvious to you that if you stayed around and continued to film, then D1 was liable to cause Mr. Kohli at least some further harm, and that you would be encouraging him to do that. I am not, however, sure that you expected D1 to attack Mr. Kohli with anything like the level of violence that he did when he lost his temper and punched and kicked him. You did not play the leading role in the incident, but yours was not a minor part. With respect to the aggravating features, 1, I refer again to the severe pain caused to Mr. Kohli caused by his injuries. 2, Mr. Kohli was a vulnerable elderly man, which must have been obvious to you even at your age. 3, you actively encouraged D1 to carry on by filming him and remaining close at hand, even after his first humiliating attack. Although what you did was very serious in some important ways, it was not as serious as D1. You did not at any stage hurt Mr. Kohli directly, and I am sure that you didn't foresee the violence of the attack which D1 carried out at him towards the end. I do not find that your involvement was because of Mr. Kohli's race. The evidence about this was limited to D1. In mitigation, I've taken into account everything set out in the pre-sentence report and what has been said and written on your behalf by your barristers. And it can be said, 1, you have no previous convictions. 2, you've had a troubled upbringing. 3, people who know who you are and what you did have given you a very hard time since September of last year. 4, you are assessed as presenting a low risk of committing further offences. 5, you have committed no further offences whilst on bail for this offence since last September. Had you been an adult, I find that the starting point under the manslaughter guideline, balancing out the aggravating and mitigating circumstances, would have been 8 years. However, under the guideline, your age, maturity and personal circumstances must be given very close attention. You were only 12 at the time of the incident, and considerably younger than D1. I find that you were as grown up as your age of 12 would suggest, no more and no less. The broad guidance is that a sentence of less than half of that appropriate for an adult would be right. Bearing in mind that a custodial sentence in these circumstances would be short, but liable to have a very severe impact on your education and chances of rehabilitation, I'm satisfied that a short custodial sentence would do more harm than good in your case. I consider that a youth rehabilitation order of 3 years is required. That is the maximum, with a supervision requirement for the same period. You'll have to do a 60-day activity requirement, which will include community work. You'll be the subject of an electronically monitored curfew between 7 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning for a period of 6 months. And if you don't follow any of those requirements, you're liable to be brought back to the Crown Court to be dealt with. Those are the circumstances and those are the sentences I pass. Thank you.
There we have there the sentence we just heard. 2 teenagers have been sentenced for killing pensioner Bim Kohli. The 15-year-old boy was handed a sentence of 7 years in prison, and the 13-year-old girl was handed a 3-year youth rehabilitation order, spared a custodial sentence, and it was worth pointing out that girl was just 12 at the time. 12 years of age, filmed an 80-year-old man being killed and has been spared prison. Been spared prison, a 3-year non-custodial sentence, a youth rehabilitation order, because the judge said there a custodial sentence would have a severe impact on your life. So that would be a huge talking point. The 13-year-old girl there spared jail despite the fact she filmed an 80-year-old man being killed by a 15-year-old boy. It's an incredible case, and GB News reporter Jack Carson reminds us of this moving story.
It's 6:18 p.m. on the 1st of September, and Bim Kohli takes his dog Rocky for an evening walk. He would never return home. The 80-year-old dad, granddad, brother and uncle would be killed by 2 teenagers after they physically and racially attacked him. Just minutes after Mr. Kohli is seen on doorbell footage walking into this park, 5 teenagers arrive. Moments later, a 15-year-old boy from the group approaches the elderly dog walker, accusing him of previously hitting another teenager with a stick. This has never been proven. As the confrontation gets more aggressive, 3 of the teenagers run away, leaving a girl with the male defendant. At 6:25 p.m, the 15-year-old boy puts on a balaclava he was carrying in his pocket and begins a tirade of physical abuse. The teenagers leave Bim Kohli on the floor and are filmed fleeing the scene. Mr. Kohli suffered fractures to 3 of his ribs and a neck injury that caused trauma to his spinal cord. He died 24 hours later. Detective Chief Inspector Mark Zinski from Leicestershire Police describes the investigation.
That boy always intended to cause really serious harm. We know that the assault, there was multiple assaults, 3 that we know of. There was a sustained attack on Mr. Kohli, a totally unprovoked attack. The proliferation in use of phones and social media messages features more and more in inquiries, and certainly with young people who now live their lives via phones. This girl was obsessed with violence, she filmed violence, she encouraged violence, and because of her actions and the actions of the boy defendant, violence unfolded and Mr. Kohli lost his life.
The 6-week trial of the teenagers heard how parts of the attack were filmed by the 13-year-old girl on her phone, including footage of the boy slapping Kohli round the face with his shoe after he collapsed onto his knees. In a letter read out to jurors, the boy said, "I did it, and I accept I'm doing time. I kinda just needed anger releasing." He claimed he acted out of instinct. Both teenagers were found guilty of manslaughter. Speaking after the verdict, Bim Kohli's family said they feel lost without him.
Absolutely heartbreaking to see him in pain like that when he's never complained about being in pain. He was the one that held us all together. He was. And now that's gone now. It's not holding us all together.
Today, they still grieve the loss of a man devoted to them all. Jack Carson, GB News, Leicester.
Well, it's an incredible case, a tragic loss of life of a wonderful and well-loved man in the area, Bim Kohli. I wonder if people will believe justice has been served today. Let's discuss that now in the studio. I'm joined by our political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Catherine, you join us moments after that sentence was passed down. Just to repeat for those joining in, Mr. Justice Turner sentenced those 2 teenagers for the manslaughter of Bim Kohli, an 80-year-old dog walker, much-loved man there in a park in Leicestershire. And two defendants, D1 and D2, obviously can't be named because they're minors. The boy, 15, the girl now 13, first of all said to the boy, "It was your fault, and the sooner you realise that, the better." There still seems to be a sense of not taking account for his actions. He was sentenced to 7 years in a youth detention centre. He said long-term detention is the only way to deal with you. Then turned his attentions to the girl. This is what actually got me really choked. The girl was 12. She was 12 at the time. She filmed an 80-year-old man getting killed. Manslaughter, killed in front of her own eyes. She filmed it. What 12-year-old girl, what 12-year-old human would film a man being killed in broad daylight? What you did was wicked, he said. Mr. Justice Turner said, what you did was wicked about both of them. But he did then say that the girl had no previous convictions, she'd had a hard upbringing, she was at a low risk of further offences. 12-year-old. He then came to think on the most controversial point of the ruling. He said a custodial sentence, even if it was short, would have a severe and lasting impact on your life, and she was spared a custodial sentence instead on a youth rehabilitation order for 3 years, which means regular monitoring. And Catherine Forsyth, I feel a bit breathless after that. You know, this is a crime that's shocked the nation. Childhood gone terribly, terribly awry. A beautiful man lost his life. Do you think justice has been served?
Well, I suspect that the relatives will have very little comfort from this verdict. It's almost beyond belief, isn't it, that, you know, a 12-year-old girl would film this and that, you know, these teenagers committing these horrendous things. And in the report there, we heard that the boy had said, I kind of just needed anger releasing. So pointless. But, of course, different rules apply to minors. And I think we have to bear in mind where we are with the criminal justice system at the moment, which is, frankly, on its knees, under-resourced, not enough prison places, people being let out of jail early and even earlier. And I think that's a reflection of where we are. But I'm sure there'll be many people out there that feel that justice is not being done.
But look at that beautiful man on the screen there. You know, he's gone. He's gone because of two children, two bored kids, one of whom filmed him dying. You know, this is the sort of case, I think, that really makes us ask bigger questions, not just about this case, Catherine, but the state of Britain, the state of where we're at, the state of broken childhood, of childhood trauma causing them to go on to do things like this. Look at that beautiful bloke. You know, every single person that you spoke to in this case that knew him said nothing but good things about him. He was a gardener, a dog walker. Everybody loved him in the community. His family were utterly heartbroken. Wrong place, wrong time. Two despicable children. You know, we hear about mitigating circumstances. We hear about difficult lives. A lot of people have difficult lives. A lot of people, you know, I came from a tough part of the country. You know, there's a lot of crime when I was a kid, a lot of wrong-uns, if you like. We never would have done anything like this because you'd have had someone guiding you. You'd have had parents. You'd have had a respect for law and order. You'd have been terrified of the police. You'd have been terrified of doing anything like this. And to almost make it into pornography by filming it, I don't know where we've gone wrong.
It is horrendous, and I think especially distasteful to have filmed this. You see it over and over again, don't you, when bad things are happening. People aren't necessarily jumping in to help or stop it. They are filming it on their phones, and then often they're sharing things on social media. Yeah, I think many people will think things are broken. A lot of people think things are broken in Britain. Things are not working as they should, and this is one of very many cases in point where ordinary, decent, upstanding people are failed, and this in the most horrific way.
Another thing that sort of really gets me going as well about this is that in the second instance, Mr. Justice Turner said he didn't believe that Mr. Kohli's race was a factor, but he did, you know, with the boy. What kind of 15-year-old, you know, would pick on somebody because they're a different race? I just don't get it. And that's another thing about, you know, when I was brought up in the 70s and the 80s, you know, you just wouldn't. I can't get my head around this case. I can't get my head around why kids would do something like this, and why they would be spared jail. Who cares about the impact on their life, to be honest? I mean, seriously, they filmed someone being kicked to death.
Yeah. No, it's terrible, terrible. I mean, it is worth remembering, of course, there have been horrific things and terrible murders committed by children. I mean, look back to James Bulger, but it does feel, doesn't it, like there is an increasing sort of breakdown and lawlessness that it feels like society is struggling to control and for the state to deal with in anything like an appropriate manner.
I wonder if people watching at home believe that it's sufficient punishment when you film someone, you know, being killed, to have a 3-year rehabilitation order, which means you've got to check in with your social, you know, services. You probably live under some sort of curfew. In fact, there's a 6-month curfew. You've got to stay at home for 6 months, you know, play video games. I mean, it makes a mockery, utter mockery to me of the state of this nation. And we're releasing violent offenders early. We're saying our jails are full. We're seeing, you know, children on the streets, you know, just having no respect for law and order. And what message does this send out? I mean, you know, it's endemic, I'm sure, at your kids' school. Is it my kids' school? You know, when there's violence, everyone films it now. Yeah. So people want to share this violence and get high on violence as a currency, as a playground currency, leading to this mindset where you think this is a good thing to do, unquestioningly, and then when you do it, well, just go and sit at home for 6 months.
Yeah. And I mean, we know there's not enough space in prisons. We know
some new ones.
One of the first, yeah, but I mean, this is something that takes time. You can't get these places quickly, but it is a horrendous state of affairs that this is where we now find ourselves. And also, when people go to prison, more often than not, they're not rehabilitated. What should be happening is they're gaining skills, they're becoming useful in ways that when they come out, they want to have a life going forward without resorting to crime. Whereas what tends to happen is they come out of prison. If they're not absolutely in with the wrong crowd before they go in, they get in with the wrong crowd, they come out, they reoffend, and they're in, out. So the whole system is failing. And, you know, there is a spending review coming next week. There are going to be very difficult decisions made. The justice system, prisons are already stretched to breaking point because we've had decades of underinvestment. And prisons and justice is an area that the public tend not to be that interested in. There's not that many votes in it, unless, of course, it all goes horribly wrong and prisoners are being released from jails early, as we're so often seeing now.
Just getting some reaction now from the family, Catherine. Mr. Cole's daughter has just said, we feel nothing but anger and disgust towards the boy and the girl. I think that's understandable. And also some details that came out. Mr. Kohli was slapped with a slider shoe. Oh, God. So he was on the ground and he took his shoe off and started beating him with a shoe when he was on the ground. He then racially abused him during the attack, although the judge said the attack was not due to race. An 80-year-old bloke on the ground, getting smacked with a shoe.
The most vulnerable in society, you know, our senior citizens, the oldest people. And, you know, you tend to think of young people, kids, as also vulnerable and also, you know, for whatever the difficulties that these children have had, you know, I don't know, but it is, it's a pretty damning indictment, isn't it?
There's going to be huge questions asked about anonymity. We have this conversation so often. it's almost on a loop. We could almost put this conversation in a sealed envelope and get out the next time this happens. Let's have a conversation about the anonymity of these children. Let's have a conversation about the fact they had a damaged childhood. Let's have a conversation about the fact they had parents who weren't there, who clearly haven't done their job. Where were the parents? What kind of children think it's a good idea to go out and pick on old people? If I'd have done this when I was a kid, I'd have had much more than being in my bedroom for 6 months. I'd have been getting a good hiding from my parents. My parents would have sorted me out, and I knew that was going to happen. I knew what the outcome of anything, even knocking on an old person's door and teasing them, I was thick ear territory. What on earth's gone wrong?
Well, kids used to be taught to respect. I think there's a loss of respect, isn't there, in society? When at our age you were told to sort of respect your elders, you were quite respectful of teachers, people in authority. I think to a large extent that has gone. People don't have that respect for authority figures in the way that they used to, and young people too.
OK, let's get some immediate reaction now from great friend of the show, former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley, who's joined us at short notice. Thank you, Peter, for dropping everything and coming to join us. I don't know how much you heard of my reaction. I feel very, very close to tears about this case. I think it just makes us ask so many questions about children, about the state of the nation, about the lack of respect for our elders, the lack of respect for law and order, the fact that a 12-year-old girl would think it's even a good idea to film somebody getting kicked to death. Peter Bleksley, I feel pretty broken about this. What's your take?
In so many regards, you and I, and I'm sure many of your audience, are singing from the same song sheet. What a dreadful state of our nation this case is, when an elderly, frail, vulnerable man living out his dotage, enjoying the last years of his life, during which he's contributed so much to British society, loses his life at the hands of two revolting, feral children. And another deeply worrying aspect of this case for me is that the judge clearly has followed slavishly the Sentencing Council guidelines and therefore handed down what I regard to be wholly inadequate sentences. What type of message does this send out? What kind of deterrent does it create for anybody who might be thinking of carrying out a similar ghastly act?
Well, I would say next to none. Certainly not for the girl. I mean, 12 years old at the time, 13 now, to get a 3-year probation. Can you help viewers to understand what that is? What is a youth rehabilitation order, a 3-year order? There's a 6-month probation. She has to be curfewed at home for 6 months. What is a youth rehabilitation order for filming somebody dying? What will she have to go through?
Whatever the probation service decide in their infinite wisdom, or should I say lack of it, they think is appropriate. It is a very loosely descriptive kind of thing and will be left entirely in the hands of the probation service. This child, their actions are number one, unforgivable, and number two, ghastly. Mr. Kohli was so well known in his neighbourhood, so respected, and I'm going to sort of paraphrase without a hint of being insulting in any way, but he was a lovely old fella, and people regarded him as such. Decent, upstanding people regarded him as such, but these feral children regarded him as a target, as a victim of their despicable behaviour. And so any children that hear this sentencing handed down today, that look at this case and are off the rails, this is almost a charter to go and harass and act in a hate-filled way towards our vulnerable elderly people who, as a nation, we should treasure. And
I wonder, Peter Bleksley, if once again, and I'm sorry if there's a sound of cynicism in my voice, a jaded tone. But you and I have had so many of these conversations. You've lived through the police force for decades. You've served on the front line. You've seen law and order change, I think, for the worse. Once again, we'll be talking about the rules around naming these minors. A lot of people think there'll be a justifiable public interest in identifying a 15-year-old who's racially abused and killed an 80-year-old man. Do you think that conversation is valid?
Extremely, without a shadow of a doubt, because, of course, there may be people out there that when they know these children are named may feel confident to come forward and tell the authorities what they know. If, for example, and I have no evidence to suggest this, but if, for example, they had been involved in other criminality, it might empower people saying their names are out there. Everybody knows now. I'll pick up the phone and tell the police exactly what I know, for example. But, of course, that hasn't happened. But there is a deeper, darker malaise which hangs over so much of the criminal justice system, particularly the Sentencing Council, and I would argue the Parole Board. Some of these people on these bodies will bend over backwards to not send people to jail. They are determined not to send them to prison, where so often they belong. And because of their fluffy, liberal, woke kind of mindset, those people that do get eventually jailed, they will do everything within their power to get them released, often at the expense of public safety.
OK, we have to leave it there. Peter Bleksley, thank you for joining us at short notice to give your thoughts on this heartbreaking case. Thank you very much. And Catherine Forster, thank you very much for your thoughts. Get in touch with your thoughts, gbviews@gbnews.com. Coming up next, Donald Trump has signed an order banning people from 12 countries from entering the United States. Should we follow suit here in Britain? That's with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we are proud to stand for you, for the Britain you love, for the communities you live in. That's what makes us the fearless champions of Britain. Its voices and its values. Because we, at GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Jupiter, Britain's news channel.
News channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation. Because the failure is.
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:25. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, moving on, Donald Trump has signed an order banning people from 12 countries from entering the United States. Now, those on the list are Afghanistan, Myanmar, Chad, Congo, Guinea, Eritrea, Haiti, Libya, Sudan and Somalia. And the US president said there are extreme dangers of foreign nationals who are not properly vetted. So should we follow suit here in the UK, or is there a few flaws in Donald Trump's plan? Well, joining me now to discuss this further is the Iranian dissident Nayek Ghorbani, huge fan of your work. Welcome to the show, and in particular, Iran is on this list, of course, your home nation. I want you to explain to our viewers your story and why banning all Iranians, you believe, would be a mistake.
Actually, first of all, thank you for having me here again. Donald Trump, President Trump, actually missing the point. Main point, it's the Islamic Republic always using the route, actually, the political people, you know, when they want to do something, they did that before in Europe. They do many different terrorist attacks with their proxies. Hezbollah in Argentina, you know, attacking the Jewish center.
Yes,
you should realize they are not the, you know, the people who want to, you know, change their life. Okay, yes, the Islamic Republic use those people as well, but if you want to stop those terrorist attack and danger for your society, you should stop the negotiation with the terrorist regime. You know, the Iranian people, if you want to, for example, here in UK, last year, we went to the front of embassy for the president actually the president election, circus of president election for Iran. You have to go and speak with the people who want to go and you know, join to the election. You have to asking them what the reason. Actually, you living here, you claim the asylum, but in other way, you go and show your support for the regime.
And the point is, you're in the United Kingdom because you totally disagree with the Ayatollah, with the fundamentalist Islamic regime in Iran. In fact, you can't return to your home country. And so you're part of the solution. You agree with Donald Trump. But yes, Donald Trump's order would prevent people like you from even travelling to his country.
Absolutely. You know, the main... he shouldn't forget who it's around him. You know, right now, Nayek, the big lobby of the Islamic Republic in US, leading many things around, you know, the office in US. You should realize who they are. They are US, actually, US. They have a citizenship. They are US citizen. You know, you should realize they are danger for your society. Aryan Tabatabai, the guy was you know, contact with the Islamic Republic. He was in office working with Joe Biden.
And I wonder, actually, if the same applies in the United Kingdom. Are there malign forces, terrorist agents within the United Kingdom already?
Absolutely.
That wish much more harm than people who might come here on a visa from Iran?
Absolutely. You see, I think 1 week ago, months ago, actually, around 9 Iranians actually get arrested for the counter-terrorism.
Yes.
who they are. They are the illegal migrant. No, you should think about that. We have actually illegal migrant. The actually Islamic Republic use that route for actually claiming asylum, their agent coming here and make the British society in danger. But we shouldn't forget their allies, the Islamist and leftist, extreme leftists, they was their allies. What they are, you know, if you see my actually interview with the guy weeks ago, I was asking, he was in a Palestinian protest and he said, yeah, do you want the Palestinian flag? I will give it to you. And I start talking with him and I'm asking him, do you support the Islamic Republic? He said, yes. You should think who they are. You know, he's a British citizen, Iranian British citizen here in this country. You should, if you want to care about, shut all the embassies, you know, and stop negotiation with the Islamic Republic, maximum support of Iranian people and maximum pressure on the Islamic Republic. You will see less than 1 month, the Iranian people will uprising and they're changing the regime, which is we want to.
And the illegal immigration routes, dinghies, we see a lot of Iranians come in now. We have seen some of those convicted for terrorism offences. Are you convinced that there could be an organisation going on? So the Islamic forces getting people to the French beaches, specifically and deliberately being sent here to cause harm to Britain?
I actually lost my friend last year. He was asylum. He actually coming from the France to the UK. He get actually cancer. He told me, I was in the boat and when we coming in through the route to the UK, guy, I see his picture. He was a mullahs in Iran. He said to me, I see his picture, and he start pretend himself as a Christian.
Wow.
We're seeing that. You should, if you want to make your country safe, you should listen to the Iranian people who never be able to going back to their country. We have many people getting the asylum actually seeker, and after 1 year they going to Iran, seeing their family. Okay.
Yeah, and Nayak Gourbani, the point being, you know, you oppose a regime in your home country which you cannot return to. You support keeping Britain safe, and you are human proof of why this blanket ban is a sledgehammer trying to crack a nut. We have to leave it there. Got to news bulletins, but it's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
It really is. Thanks for joining us in the studio. Now, lots more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including Donald Trump is to welcome the German Chancellor any minute now. But first, live pictures there, as we've seen so many world leaders go through those fateful doors. What fate will await the German Chancellor? Will it be a nightmare compared to Zelensky, or will he get away lightly? All eyes on the White House will cross back live as he arrives. But first, here's your headlines, and it's Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. The top story this half hour. A 15-year-old boy and 13-year-old girl have been sentenced for manslaughter of Bim Kohli, who was attacked while walking his dog in a Leicestershire park. The 8-year-old was slapped with a shoe and racially abused during the incident last September. The boy has been jailed for 7 years. The girl avoided custody but was handed a 3-year rehabilitation order and a 6-month curfew. They were found guilty earlier this year but can't be named due to their age. Mr. Kohli's daughter told the court the family feels nothing but anger and disgust. More pensioners will receive winter fuel payments this year, but the government has ruled out a return to universal support. Chancellor Rachel Reeves says the means test will be raised, with full details expected as soon as possible. The payments worth up to £300 were limited last year to those on pension credit, cutting eligibility from 11 million people to just 1.5 million. Pensions Minister Torsten Bell says fairness is key, and the aim is to include more low-income pensioners who missed out. But he confirmed there is no prospect of a universal winter fuel payment. 500,000 more children in England will get free school meals from next September under plans announced by the government today. Any child whose parent receives universal credit will be eligible, regardless of income. That removes the current £7,400 earning cap. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson says the change could lift 100,000 children out of hardship. The move is backed by £1 billion in funding, but campaigners say much more needs to be done, including scrapping the two-child benefit cap. Well, we'll just pull away from that story and take you live now to a press conference taking place outside court following the Bim Kohli sentencing.
The death of my dad has left a hole in our heart. Sorry, a hole in our family. Apologies. A hole that can never be filled because of the actions of two teenagers on that Sunday evening last September. I believe on that day, the two teenagers made a choice. The teenager boy chose to attack my dad, and the girl chose to film him being attacked. They knew what they were doing. I feel angry, disappointed that the sentence they have both received today does not, I believe, reflect the severity of the crime they committed. However, I understand the judge has guidelines, but they have taken a life, and as a result, our lives have been changed forever. When they are released, they still have their full lives ahead of them. They can rebuild their lives. We can't. The last 9 months have been truly unimaginable for myself and my family. Our local community has provided a huge amount of support, and we are forever thankful for this. We have been left feeling frustrated by people who have not wanted to help police in this investigation, have been reluctant to come forward. We all have a duty, we all have a public duty to support justice in our areas and ensure that offenders are held accountable. Supporting police in their investigations are vital. I would ask, how would you feel if it was a member of your family? Would you not want those who witnessed it or know about what happened to help? What has also become clear at this time, since my dad's death, is the underreporting of the racist and antisocial behaviour in our area in the months leading up to the attack of my dad. My plea to everyone is to report issues, no matter how small it may seem, so police and others are able to build up a full picture of antisocial behaviour and act on the information being provided. It is everyone's responsibility. The government also need to do more to ensure police have the resources they need to safeguard the communities. More could have been done to prevent my dad being killed. If police were able to have more visible patrols in the area following the previous reports of...
OK, and that was the daughter. This is now Donald Trump. Live pictures from Washington. There we can see the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, walking through that fateful door. What destiny will await him? Of course, tariffs high on the agenda as ever. You must remember Germany runs at something like a $100 billion trade deficit with America, meaning tariffs will truly bite into German exports on auto cars, on machinery, on all sorts of exports. Germany will be praying it doesn't feel the bite of punishing tariffs and will be trying to work miracles almost to avoid them. And also high on the list is the war in Ukraine. What's happening in the peace talks? Don't forget, Donald Trump said he could end this war within 1 month. And at the moment, those peace talks seem to have stalled after that astonishing drone raid on Vladimir Putin's spy planes, seem to have set all of that backwards. But of course, this is the first time they've met since the Chancellor became the leader of Europe's biggest economy. Defence spending sure to feature highly as well. We've seen our own Prime Minister Keir Starmer trying to up defence spending, I believe, in a way to head off the demands of Donald Trump for many years, even in his first term, was demanding NATO nations paid their way. Germany has been utterly asleep at the wheel on that. Don't forget, when Germany was divided, it was the United States that stood in and protected Europe, and particularly Germany, of course, on that east-west front line from any incursion from... We're going to cross back now because someone's just stood totally in front of the camera there at the White House. Thank you very much. But we'll cross back to the White House for more later on. And, of course, we'll be joining the now customary, incredible, unmissable press conferences where literally anything can happen in their volatility when the questions start flowing. What fate awaits Germany? We're soon going to find out. Now, moving on, is it the end of the road for Lambeth's controversial low-traffic neighbourhood in West Dulwich? Well, a High Court ruling says it was unlawful, no appeal and no delay. And now comes the fallout because over £1 million in fines could be refunded to motorists, because if it was unlawful, so were the fines. And the community is now divided over whether the scheme was for safety or whether it was eco-overreach. Well, I'm joined now by the former Liberal Democrat councillor for Moseley and Kings Heath ward, Martin Mullaney, and also Stan Hems, who is a butcher, both affected by LTNs. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Who cared to go first? Because I know, Stan, we've had you on the show before, and you told us that the LTN around there was severely turning your profit margins to mincemeat.
It's turning the businesses to mincemeat. We had 6 full-time and 2 part-time staff in our shop. We've got now 2 full-time and 4 part-time staff. We are down nearly 50% on turnover. It's not just my business. I've been there nearly 60 years trading as a butcher. Shops that have traded there since 1947 have closed. Morris Robinson Sports. It's just killing us absolutely dead without any consultation whatsoever, or very little consultation, and they lost the vote with the business. And I also chair Kings Heath Business Association, and we took a survey of all the shops. 95 were against it, and one of the councillors had to say we're not taking any notice of it, a Labour councillor. They're totally against it. It's a Labour council completely. And they never took any notes of our survey. 95% of the businesses were against it. Think about that.
Well, that echoes actually what happened in West Dulwich, because they had one of these consultation processes. 2/3 of the residents said we don't want it, and Lambeth Council simply overrode it. Could I bring you in next, Martin Mullaney? You're a former Liberal Democrat councillor. Was it your campaign position to stand against LTNs or to be in favour of them?
Well, Mike, I'm against the way this has been introduced. I mean, in principle, I haven't got a problem as long as the residents want it. In this case, the residents in the council consultation were massively against this scheme. It was 56% to 34% who were against. And there's going to be a phase 2, which they want to introduce this summer. The council, who are bankrupt, are going to spend £2.5 million introducing further road closures, which, and again, the consultation, 70% were against. The other thing is accidents have shot up. This was supposed to be a safety scheme, but it's displaced traffic onto neighbouring roads that are accident hotspots. So we've seen a 44% of life-changing accidents because of the LTN. It has not reduced accidents at all. Also, similar to what's happening in Lambeth, Kingsley Business Association put in a detailed objections, and the council just ignored it, just didn't include it in the cabinet report. So just like Lambeth, the businesses and the residents have been completely ignored by this Labour-run council.
Stan, I'm going to come back to you now. You're a man who likes to chop things for a living. Do you think it's time to go chop on a legal case? Because Lambeth, precisely the same thing. They said they were completely ignored. The consultation was ignored. They've did a crowdfunder. They took their council to court. They've got it. They're going to rip it out, and everyone might get their money back. Do you think you might be inspired by what's happened down in West Dulwich there?
I will think it would be the best thing that could happen. We've tried to get a crowd fund. We've tried people. We need someone very wealthy to come along with all the money and pay for our court case like Dulwich did. If we do that, we could win. But it's not just that. It's a lot of different things that are happening in King's Heath. We're just struggling constantly, and the cars are displaced, but they're displaced, and it's taking me 10 minutes or 20 minutes to drive 5 minutes. So it's absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of the businesses now are talking about closing. I won't name names, but I could name 3 very big prominent businesses in King's Heath that are talking about closing because it's desperately affected his trade. One has been there for 40 years. I've been there nearly 60 years trading in King's Heath. My son runs the business now mainly. It's his, you know, I handed the reins over, but it's very difficult for him.
And can I just say that this was supposed to increase cycling, because we was told that this was going to be a land of milk and honey and everyone will be cycling into King's Heath and the traders will be really happy. There's been no change. None
whatsoever.
No change. No.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid I have to interrupt because Donald Trump has emerged. Gentlemen, thanks for your time. Here is Donald Trump now live at the White House.
Something happened a couple of days ago, and now they do a return, and, you know, here it goes. It's not good. He's unhappy about it. I'm unhappy about it. But I think eventually we're going to be successful in stopping the bloodshed. It's pure bloodshed. 5,000 to 6,000 young soldiers a week are being killed. You know that there's numbers.
Yeah, we know the numbers.
They're staggering. They're staggering numbers. But Chancellor, I just want to congratulate you, and I want to welcome you to the Oval Office.
Thank you.
It's an Oval Office that's in very good shape. We like fixing things up and having them tippy-top like they have in Germany.
Yeah.
They do that in Germany very much, and we do it here. We're having a very good run. I also had a great election, great win, won everything. Won the popular vote, all 7 swing states, which is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's pretty unusual to do that. And we have a great mandate from the people, and part of our mandate is we're going to have a great relationship with your country. So I just want to thank you very much for being here, and if you'd like to say a few words.
Absolutely. So, thank you, first of all, Mr. President, for your kind invitation to come to Washington, D.C. I was in this building first time ever in 1982. I told you, when former President Ronald Reagan was in office. So I'm very happy to be here again and to offer our close cooperation with the United States of America. Yeah. We are having so much in common, our history. We owe the Americans a lot. We will never forget about that. And so with your German provenance, I think this is a very good basis for close cooperation between America and Germany. So again, thank you. Thank you for the hospitality, and thank you for having your guest house for a night. This is a great place. Great place. Many thanks for that. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
It's a wonderful place. It's a landmark also. And Blair House is it's a nice place to stay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you very much for saying that. Would you have any questions, please?
Mr. President, on your new travel ban, why now? And if the Boulder attack was part of your reasoning, why not include Egypt on that list where the suspect is from?
Well, because Egypt has been a country that we deal with very closely. They have things under control. The countries that we have don't have things under control. And why now? I can say that it can't come soon enough, frankly. We want to keep bad people out of our country. The Biden administration allowed some horrendous people, and we're getting them out one by one, and we're not stopping until we get them out. We have thousands of murderers. I even hate to say this in front of the Chancellor. Of course, you have a little problem, too, with some of the people that were allowed into your country. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It shouldn't have happened. I told her it shouldn't have happened, what she did. But you have your own difficulty with that, and we do, and we're moving them out, and we're moving them out very strongly. But it can't come fast enough. We want to get them out. We want to get them out now. We don't want to have other bad people coming into our country. But using the word bad, I'm being nice. Okay, question?
President, you put out on Truth Social a post regarding your conversation with President Xi.
Right.
Can you talk about whether or not you feel that trade talks, trade relations are back on track after appearing to be a little bit off track last week?
A little bit off track. It was only the complexity. It's pretty complex stuff. We had a very good conversation with President Xi a little while ago, just before your arrival. In fact, we just hung up, and they said, "You're here." I said, "That's pretty good." Two great leaders of the world in a very short period of time. We had a very good talk, and we've straightened out any complexity. It's very complex stuff, and we straightened it out. The agreement was we're going to have Scott and Howard and Jameson will be going and meeting with their top people and continue it forward. But no, I think we have everything. I think we're in very good shape with China and the trade deal. We have a deal with China, as you know, but we were straightening out some of the points having to do mostly with rare earth, magnets, and some other things.
So those reduced trade tariff rates, they remain in effect?
Yeah, we have the deal. I mean, we've had a deal. We announced the deal, and we'll be, I guess you could say, I wouldn't even say finalizing it up, Scott. I would say we have a deal, and we're going to just make sure that everybody understands what the deal is. Okay? We had a really good conversation. By the way, he invited me to China, and I invited him here. We both accepted. So I'll be going there with First Lady at a certain point, and he'll be coming here, hopefully, with the First Lady of China.
Mr. President, what do you expect from Germany?
Go ahead, please.
Did you talk about the Chinese students? Are you allowing them to come to the U.S.?
No, Chinese students are coming. No problem. No problem.
Okay,
It's our honor to have them, frankly. Look, we want to have foreign students, but we want them to be checked. You know, in the case of Harvard and Columbia and others, all we want to do is see their list. There's no problem with that. This is anybody outside of our country, international students, because when we see some of the people that we've been watching, we say, where do these people come from? How is that possible? No, we want to have foreign students come. We're very honored by it, but we want to see their list. Harvard didn't want to give us the list. They're going to be giving us the list now. I think they're starting to behave, actually, if you want to know the truth.
Okay.
On Russia, are you willing to put more pressure on Putin to end the war by imposing new sanctions on Russia and also on China?
Well, remember, I'm the one that ended Nord Stream 2, going to a place called Germany, come to think of it. I'm sorry I did that. I don't know. But I ended Nord Stream 2. Nobody else did. And then when Biden came in, he immediately approved it. That's the largest, essentially the largest pipeline in the world, going to Germany and other countries. And by the way, we have so much oil and gas, you will not be able to buy it all. I mean, you literally, we have so much, and I hope we're going to make that a part of our trade deal because we have more than anybody else. We have actually the most by far in the world, probably double what anyone else has. So we'll work on that. I'm sure that's something we'll discuss today.
Mr. President,
what do you expect from Germany and what do you expect from the Chancellor?
Well, first of all, I'm glad to meet because I've been dealing with the Chancellor, and he's very a very good man to deal with. He's difficult, I would say. Can I say that? It's a positive.
Go ahead.
You wouldn't want me to say you're easy, right?
No.
Yeah, he's a very great representative of Germany. I think all we want is just going to have a good relationship. The rest will just sort of follow very easily. We'll have a good trade deal. I mean, I guess that will be mostly determined by the European Union, but you're a very big part of that, so you'll be involved. But we'll end up hopefully with a trade deal, or we'll do something. You know, we'll do the tariffs. I mean, I'm okay with the tariffs, or we make a deal with the trade, and I guess that's what we're discussing now.
Mr. President.
Back there, please. Go ahead.
Mr. President? Okay.
Is Germany doing enough on defense, Mr. President? Is Germany doing enough on defense?
What?
Defense spending.
Is Germany doing enough on defense?
The Chancellor wants to.
Is Germany doing enough on defense?
Wants to spend 3.5.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I haven't discussed it very much. I know that you're spending more money on defense now, and quite a bit more money, and that's a positive thing. I'm not sure that General MacArthur would have said it's positive. You know, he wouldn't like it, but I sort of think it's good. You understand what I mean by that?
Absolutely, I understand.
He made a statement: never let Germany rearm. And I said, I always think about that when he says, sir, we're spending more money on defense. I say, ooh, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I think it's a good thing. But, you know, at least to a certain point. There'll be a point when I'll say, please don't arm anymore, if you don't mind. We'll be watching him. I'm kidding.
Mr. President. Mr. President. Biden, Mr. President.
Yeah, Biden. You said Biden.
Your predecessor dismissed your auto pen investigation. He said he made all the decisions during his presidency. I'm curious your reaction to his dismissal.
Well, look, the auto pen, I think, is the big scandal. Outside of the rigged election of 2020, I think the biggest scandal of the last many years is the auto pen. And who's using it? I happen to think I know, okay, because I'm here. And I'm not a big auto pen person, fortunately. I'm glad. I'm very glad. It's an easy way out. But it's a very bad thing, very dangerous. You know, I sign important documents. Usually when they put documents in front of you, they're important. Even if you're signing ambassadorships, and I consider that important. I think it's inappropriate. You have somebody that's devoting 4 years of their life or more to being an ambassador. I think you really that person deserves to get a real signature, not an auto pen signature. And I can tell auto pen easily. I can look at it. Like two little pinholes from pulling the paper, right? You always see the pinholes. Yeah. It's real easy to tell about auto pen. I think it's very disrespectful to people when they get an auto pen signature. Outside, auto pen to me are used when thousands of letters come in from young people all over the country and you want to get them back. And, you know, people use auto pens for that, to send a little signature at the bottom of a letter. We have thousands of them. We get thousands of letters a week. And it's not possible to, you know, I'd like to do it myself, but you can't do it. To me, that's where auto pens start and stop. But I'm sure that he didn't know many of the things. Look, he was never for open borders. He was never for transgender for everybody. He was never for men playing in women's sports. I mean, he changed, all of these things that changed so radically. I don't think he had any idea that frankly, I said it during the debate and I say it now, he didn't have much of an idea what was going on.
Mr. President.
But he shouldn't be, essentially whoever used the auto pen was the president. And that is wrong, it's illegal, it's so bad, and it's so disrespectful to our country.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, will you lead your troops in Germany? And if I may ask a question to the Chancellor to answer in German for the German audience, how has your first encounter been?
The answer is yes. We'll talk about that. But if they'd like to have them there, you know, we have a lot of them, about 45,000. It's a lot of troops. It's a city when you think of it. That's good economic development. They're highly paid troops, and they spend a lot of money in Germany. But the relationship with Germany is very important. Yeah, we'll be doing that. No problem.
May I say a few words in German to the German public? So, danke für die Frage. Wir sind hier im Weißen Haus und ich bedanke mich beim Präsidenten für den sehr freundlichen Empfang im Oval Office in diesem weltweit bekannten Raum. Ich freue mich sehr, hier zu sein und wir bereiten eine Vertiefung unserer Zusammenarbeit vor. Ich freue mich sehr darüber.
Mr. President, you've made
Mr. President,
do you speak English because you speak such good English? Is it as good as your German, would you say? Do you feel, no, do you feel more comfortable?
No, it's not my mother tongue, but I try to understand almost everything and to speak as good as I can.
Very good. You know, it's,
Mr. President, you've made
it's an achievement, actually.
Mr. President, can we follow up on the auto pen?
Thank you, Mr. President. The criticism that I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen, regarding Elon Musk and your big, beautiful bill, what's your reaction to that? Do you think it in any way hurts passage in the Senate, which, of course, what is you're seeking?
Well, look, you know, I've always liked Elon, and it's always very surprised. You saw the words he had for me, the words of, and he hasn't said anything about me that's bad. I'd rather have him criticize me than the bill, because the bill is incredible. It's the biggest cut in the history of our country. We've never cut. It's about 1.6 trillion in cuts. It's the biggest tax cut. You would say people's taxes will go way down, but it's the biggest tax cut in history. It's we are doing things in that bill that are unbelievable. And when you look at what we're doing for small businesses, for people, for middle-income people, all of the things that we're doing, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And, you know, Elon's upset because we took the EV mandate, and, you know, which was a lot of money for electric vehicles. And, you know, they're having a hard time, the electric vehicles. And they want us to pay billions of dollars in subsidy. And, you know, Elon knew this from the beginning. He knew it for a long time ago. That's been in there. That's been, I would say, JD, that hasn't changed. That's been right from the beginning, Mr. Secretary. That hasn't changed at all, right from the beginning. But I know that disturbed him. He wanted, and rightfully, you know, he recommended somebody from that he, I guess, knew very well. I'm sure he respected him, but to run NASA. And I didn't think it was appropriate. And he happened to be a Democrat, like totally Democrat. And I say, you know, look, we won. We get certain privileges, and one of the privileges, we don't have to appoint a Democrat. NASA is very important. We have great people. General Kane is going to be picking somebody with our, we'll be checking him out and seeing, but he wanted that person, a certain person, and we said no. And, you know, I can understand why he's upset. Remember, he was here for a long time. You saw a man who was very happy when he stood behind the Oval desk. And even with the black eye, I said, do you want a little makeup? We'll get you a little makeup. But he said, no, I don't think so, which is interesting and very nice. He wants to be who he is, so you could make that statement too, I guess. Look, Elon and I had a great relationship. I don't know if we're well anymore. I was surprised because you were here. Everybody in this room practically was here as we had a wonderful send-off. He said wonderful things about me. You couldn't have nicer. Said the best things. He's worn the hat. Trump was right about everything. And I am right about the great, big, beautiful bill. We call it a great, big, beautiful bill because that's what it is. And again, biggest tax cuts in history, biggest economic development moves anywhere. We've never done anything like it. Business is spurred. And I don't know if you've seen the numbers, but the numbers came out. Even the CBO, which is run by Democrats, said that we're going to be doing, you know, I'd like you to discuss it, the 2.8 trillion that CBO, this is a group of people that are Democrats. They're very hostile to us. They just came out with phenomenal numbers, what it does. You want to mention that, Scott?
Yes, sir. So what we've seen is we keep hearing from the CBO that there's going to be a large deficit from the bill, which we disagree with, but using the CBO scoring, they came out and scored the tariff revenue. We think it'll be the minimum of $2.8 trillion over the 10-year window, which actually puts the bill in surplus if you include the tariff revenue, which they won't do.
It gives you a tremendous surplus, but we're not allowed to use that. For some reason, they say scoring. Nobody knows what scoring means. Maybe a couple of people, but nobody. Somebody sits in the background. They say, well, we're not going to allow that. They're not allowing other things that we have that are tremendously profitable for our country. But if you saw the other day, CNBC, they came out with numbers, and the people on the show, very good people, I've watched them for a long time, they couldn't believe the numbers, how good they are. The numbers were incredible, and that was personal income and also very low inflation. We have very low inflation. We're down to 2% now. and maybe even lower than that. And when I took it over, it was a mess. Remember, we had the worst inflation probably in the history of our country. They say 48 years, but let's say I think it's worse than that. So we had the worst inflation in the history of our country under the Biden administration. Now we're down to a beautiful number, 2%. You'd actually like to keep it there. Better than 0 is 2%. It's going down maybe to 1, and 1% is like perfect. That's perfect. You don't want to have 0 for certain reasons that nobody is very interested to listen to. But we have almost perfect inflation. Grocery prices are down. Everything. Remember eggs? Eggs. We weren't going to buy another egg for the next 20 years. They were so expensive, right? Remember? You guys all hit me about eggs. Eggs have come down 400%. Everybody has eggs now. They're having eggs for breakfast again. But if you look at gasoline, very important. I think always the most important because it's the energy is the biggest factor. That's what happened. He screwed up our energy policy, and everything went up because energy went up. But now energy is way down, and they have states where you're at $1.98 a gallon for gasoline. So the costs have come way down, and one of the things I ran on was that. I ran on the border. We have the best border in the history of our country, 99.99%. It was last week, 3 people came in, 2 of them for medical reasons. We let them in because one of them had a heart attack. I think it was a nice thing to do, and one of them had something else. So we've never had, I had very good numbers for 4 years, but we really topped it. And I want to thank Christie and Tom Homan. They've done a fantastic job. But nobody mentions that anymore. Remember, a few months ago, the border was a total disaster. People were coming in by the hundreds of thousands of people a day, a week, a month. I mean, we had a month, 2 million people came in 1 month. The border was being overrun, and a lot of bad people, criminals, murderers, drug dealers. We had some of the worst people in the world coming in from all over the world. It's totally closed. And you know what? People are coming into our country, but they're coming in legally. So we've done a great job. Elon knew that. Elon endorsed me very strongly. He actually went up and campaigned for me. I think I would have won. Susie would say I would have won Pennsylvania easily anyway, even if the governor ran, the real governor, not the governor from Minnesota, he's a sick puppy, that guy. That poor guy, I feel sorry for him. But they made a bad choice with him. But if you pick Shapiro or anybody else, I spoke to him recently about his house being set on fire, which was terrible. But if they picked him, I would have won Pennsylvania. I won it by a lot. But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars, and it really is unfair. We want to have cars of all types. Electric, we want to have electric, but we want to have a gasoline, combustion. We want to have different. We want to have hybrids. We want to have all. We want to be able to sell everything. And when that was cut, and Congress wanted to cut it, he became a little bit different, and I can understand that. But he knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody, and he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape. He said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
Mr. President, I just want to clarify, did he raise any of these concerns with you privately before he raised them publicly? And this is the guy you put in charge of cutting spending. Should people not take him seriously about spending now? Are you saying this is all sour grapes?
No, he worked hard, and he did a good job. And I'll be honest, I think he misses the place. I think he got out there, and all of a sudden he wasn't in this beautiful Oval Office, and he's got nice offices too. But there's something about this one. I was telling the Chancellor, this is where it is. People come in here, even from Germany. They come in and they walk into the Oval Office, and it's just a special place. It's, World War I, it started and it ended here, and World War II, and so many other things. Everything big comes right from this beautiful space. It's now much more beautiful than it was 6 months ago. A lot of good things are happening in this room. And I'll tell you, He's not the first. People leave my administration and they love us. And then at some point they miss it so badly, and some of them embrace it and some of them actually become hostile. I don't know what it is. It's sort of Trump derangement syndrome, I guess they call it, but we have it with others too. They leave and they wake up in the morning and the glamour's gone, the whole world is different, and they become hostile. I don't know what it is. Someday you'll write a book about it and you'll let us know. Yeah.
Mr. President, speaking of ending wars in this room, you were very critical of Vladimir Putin a couple of days ago. What kind of play is he playing from your perspective? What are his...
Well, look, he got hit. He's been doing hitting, so I understand it. But he got hit hard, and I don't think he's playing games. I think I've always said he wanted the whole thing. I thought he wanted the entire everything having to do with Ukraine. That's something that would have never happened if I were president. The election was rigged. I didn't get to be president, but I got to be president now. And I think it's a much more important presidency. Other than a couple of things like that, the war would have never happened. The war with Ukraine, with Putin, would have never happened, ever, not even a chance. And it didn't happen for 4 years. And it wasn't thought of. I used to talk to him about Ukraine a lot. It was the apple of his eye, but he would have never done what he did. And I think mistakes were made by him, but I think mistakes were made by other people. The president should have never allowed that war. Biden should have never allowed that war to happen. If you had the right guy in here, that war would have never happened. Israel would have never happened with Hamas. That would have never happened. The attack on Israel would have never happened because Iran was broke. They had no money. They had no money to give to Hamas or Hezbollah or anybody else. And all of that would have never happened. Inflation wouldn't have happened. It was caused mostly by energy. And the Biden administration messed up my great energy policy. We were down into the 190 a gallon, and it would have never happened. It was caused by energy and their bad spending on the Green New Scam and other things that they spent on. But all of those things would have never happened. But maybe most importantly, the war chancellor with Russia would never have happened with Ukraine. It was something that would have, you know, I dealt with Putin a lot. There was no chance, zero. And, you know, a lot of people say, how do you know? For 4 years it didn't happen. There was never a chance of it happening. And he understood the consequences. Now, it's a shame. And when you see all of those people, they came out with a report today that that millions of people have died, much more than people thought. And I've been saying that for a long time. The amount of death in that war is far greater than the news has been reporting, or than, frankly, that either side has been reporting. It's a very sad thing. And I can tell you, just speaking for the chancellor, because we speak about it, he feels the same way. He wants to see it ended. Would you like to say something?
Absolutely. And I'm here, Mr. President, to talk with you later on how we could contribute to that goal. And we all are looking for measures and for instruments to bring this terrible war to an end. And may I remind you that we are having June 6th tomorrow. This is D-Day anniversary, when the Americans once ended a war in Europe. And I think this is in your hand in specific, in ours.
That was not a pleasant day for you?
No, that was not a pleasant...
This was not a great day.
In the long run, Mr. President, this was the liberation of my country from Nazi dictatorship.
That's true.
So,
that's true.
And we know what we owe you. But this is the reason why I'm saying that America is, again, in a very strong position to do something on this war and ending this war. So let's talk about what we can do jointly, and we are ready to do what we can. And you know that we gave support to Ukraine, and that we are looking for more pressure on Russia. The European Union did, and we should talk about that.
We will talk about it, and you know, it's good timing. The numbers for our country are through the roof. The economic numbers, because of the election and because of tariffs and other things, a lot of things. But we've had some of the best numbers we've ever had. They were reported yesterday, the day before, and even today. The country is doing really well. I think that one of the things you'd be most interested in is that 6 months ago, we were having a hard time getting anybody to join our military. I mean, they just couldn't do it. The numbers were record low. We couldn't get people to join the military. It wasn't me. This was before I got there, the past administration. But 6 months ago, a year ago, the numbers were record low. You couldn't get them to join. That included the police. And you couldn't get them to join. Now, we just hit the highest number in the history of our country, we think, but very close, but the highest in the history of our country, recruitment, joining the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, police forces all over the country.
What did you do for that? What was the reason?
Spirit. They love our country again. You know? You're going to do the same thing. Spirit. We have great spirit is back in our country, and it's very simple. And, you know, it was only, Susie, 6 months ago, right, that you got reports. You're the one that released them that you couldn't get anybody to join the military, and now we're stocked. Every service now is packed, and we have waiting lists of people trying to get in, as good as we've ever had in the history of our country. So that's an honor. That's a great honor.
Mr. President, on the war.
You've asked. You've had enough. Go ahead.
Mr. President, so would you consider to put more sanctions on Russia? Because this discussion is going on now for weeks and months, and you tweeted about it once, but then nothing happens. So
yeah, when I see the moment when we're not going to make a deal, when this thing won't stop,
is there a deadline?
If that moment, yeah, it's in my brain, the deadline. When I see the moment where it's not going to stop, and I'm sure you're going to do the same thing, will be very, very, very tough. And it could be on both countries, to be honest. You know, it takes two to tango. But we're going to be very tough. Whether it's Russia or anybody else, we're going to be very tough. That's a bloodbath that's going on over there. And when I see the moment where I say, well, they're going to just keep fighting. You know, I gave the analogy yesterday when I spoke to President Putin. I had a 2-hour and 15-minute call with him. Sometimes, and this is me speaking maybe in a negative sense, but sometimes you see two young children fighting like crazy. They hate each other, and they're fighting in a park. And you try and pull them apart. They don't want to be pulled. Sometimes you're better off letting them fight for a while and then pulling them apart. And I gave that analogy to Putin yesterday. I said, President, maybe you're going to have to keep fighting and suffering a lot, because both sides are suffering, before you pull them apart, before they're able to be pulled apart. But it's a pretty known analogy. You have two kids, they fight. Sometimes you let them fight for a little while. You see it in hockey. You see it in sports. The referees let them go for a couple of seconds, let them go for a little while before you pull them apart. And maybe, and I said it, and maybe that's a negative because we're saying go, but a lot of bad blood. There's some bad blood between the two. I have to deal with it, and the Chancellor has to deal with it. It's incredible. The level of, there's a great hatred between those two men, but between the warring parties. Great hatred.
Can you say and believe, apparently, that there's no immediate peace?
What?
That there's no immediate peace. There will be no.
Well, I can't. I'd love to have immediate if I could.
But why?
If I could, but we don't have immediate. You know, it's like I'd love to have that. I'd like it to start. Right now, we would leave a room if we knew the war could end. We'd say, forget about you guys. Forget about trade, right?
Yeah.
We'd say, let's go settle it. There's some additional fighting that's going to go on. You know, he attacked, and they attacked pretty harshly. They went deep into Russia, and he actually told me. I mean, I made it very clear. He said we have no choice but to attack based on that, and it's probably not going to be pretty. I don't like it. I said, don't do it. You shouldn't do it. You should stop it. But again, there's a lot of hatred, and you know, I'm very proud of the fact that with India and Pakistan, I was able to stop that. And those are nuclear powers. That was getting close to being out of hand. And I spoke to some very talented people on both sides, very good people on both sides. And I said, you know, we're dealing with you on trade, Pakistan and India right now. I said, we're not going to deal with you on trade if you're going to go shooting each other and whipping out nuclear weapons that maybe even affect us. Because, you know, that nuclear dust blows across oceans very quickly. it affects us. And I said, if you're going to do that, we're not going to do any trade deals. And you know what? I got that war stopped. Now, I hope we don't go back and we find out that they started, but I don't think they will. They were both good. They were well represented. I want to congratulate both countries because, as you know, the leader of India, who's a great guy, was here a few weeks ago. We had some great talks. We're doing a trade deal. And Pakistan, likewise, they have very strong leadership. Some people won't like when I say that, but, you know, it is what it is. And they stopped that war. Now, am I going to get credit? I'll never get credit for anything. They don't give me credit for anything. But nobody else could have done it. I stopped it. I was very proud of that. I wish we could do the same thing with Ukraine and Russia. And at some point, it'll happen. I believe that. And if it doesn't happen, or if I see somebody's out of line, if Russia's out of line, you'll be amazed how tough. Remember this. They like to say that I'm friends with Russia. I'm not friends with anybody. I'm friends with you. I'm not friends with them. I want the right thing to happen for our country, for everybody, for humanity. But I'm the one that stopped the pipeline. It's called Nord Stream 2. Until I came along, nobody ever heard, not one person in this room ever heard of Nord Stream 2. You probably did, yes, because it went to Germany. He's the only one
knowing that this was a mistake.
But I stopped it. I stopped it. Yeah, and you've said that openly. Yeah. It was a mistake because, and I used to go with Angela. I'd say, well, wait a minute. We're spending all this money to defend you against Russia, and then you're giving Russia billions of dollars a month. What kind of a deal is that? You know, which was, but you said it better than anybody else. I appreciate it. But I'm the one that stopped it. And that was the biggest economic development job, if you want to call it that, in the history, think of it, in the history of Russia. That was a massive, it's the biggest pipeline in the world. Going to go all over Europe, not only to Germany. You know, they were Germany, but then they were branching off all over to Europe. Nobody ever heard of, not one person of you heard of it. And I stopped it. It was dead. And then they say, I'm friends with Putin. I got along with him. He respected me, I respected him. It would have never happened. But I stopped Nord Stream 2. When Biden came in, almost the first week, he approved it. He let it be built. And then they say that I wasn't tough on Russia. Putin said to me, you know, you're not tough on Russia. You stopped the biggest, most important job we've ever done. You stopped it. And Biden came in and he let it be built. And I'll tell you what, I'll never forget the day. I had it totally stopped. They weren't building. They gave up on it. They weren't able to. And then Biden came in and he let him build. I couldn't believe it. Okay, one or two questions more, please. Any questions? Any question for the Chancellor? Go ahead, for the Chancellor.
That would be one.
I like his answers much better.
Would you continue to support Ukraine?
Yeah, I'm with Ukraine. We just signed a big deal on rare earth with Ukraine, and we want to. I want to. You know what? I'm for stopping killing. Really, that's what I'm for. Again, a war that would have never started, should have never started. I want to see the killing stop. We spent $350 billion, much more than Europe, but Europe spent a lot also. I mean, they spent way over $100 billion. Yeah. So you're talking about close to $500 billion went into that whole thing. And it's not even the money, and I know with you too, it's a lot of money, but it's the death that's being caused. We went to the Middle East. I went last week to the Middle East. We took in $5.1 trillion. That's many, many times. That's 30, 40 times, 50 times more than what we're talking about. It's think of that, $5.1 trillion of investment with one trip that lasted 4 days. So it's not the money. It's a little the money, but not the money, the big thing. The big thing is the death. The death of, and really the decimation. You've lost a whole culture. You know, Ukraine had the most beautiful turrets. They call them turrets, the little towers, beautiful towers, the most beautiful in the world. They're all now laying on their side, blown to smithereens. It'll never happen again. They've taken away the culture of a country. They've taken away the heritage of a country. It's a terrible thing. But most importantly, again, is the death. 5,000 plus people a week, soldiers, are being killed. He doesn't want that, and I don't want that. One more.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Mr. President, do you support the Graham bill on putting high tariffs on China?
I haven't looked at it, but they'll be guided by me. That's the way it's supposed to be. They're going to be guided by me. Now, I haven't looked at it. It's a bill on sanctions, etc. I'm a very quick study. At the right time, I'll do what I want to do. But it could very well be okay. I'll have to see. But they're waiting for me to decide on what to do, and I'll know maybe very soon. It's a harsh bill. Yeah, very harsh.
We'll take one more on the pen.
Yeah, I would like to have a question to the Chancellor as well, because do you agree with the analogy the President made on the war between Russia and Ukraine as being a fight between two kids? Is that how you view that as well? And what do you actually want the US President to do in this?
Well, I think we both agree on this war and how terrible this war is going on. And we are both looking for ways to stop it very soon. And I told the President before we came in that he is the key person in the world who can really do that now by putting pressure on Russia. And we will have this debate later on again, how we can proceed jointly between the Europeans and the Americans. And I think we are all we are having the duty to do something on that now to stop it after 3.5 years, which is really terrible. Look at the kids. The kids which were kidnapped from Ukraine to Russia. This is all terrible. And so we are talking about instruments, measures, what we can do. And my personal view is clear on that. We are on the side of Ukraine, and we are trying to get them stronger and stronger just to make Putin stop this war. And this is our approach.
We get satellite pictures of the war field, and you don't even like to look at them. Right?
It's terrible.
So
it's really
bodies, arms, heads, legs all over the place. You've never seen anything like it. It's so ridiculous.
And this is only by Russian weapons against Ukraine. This had never happened with Ukraine weapons against Russia. Never. Ukraine is only targeting military targets. Not civilians, not private, not energy infrastructure. So this is the difference, and that's the reason why we are trying to do more on Russia, how to stop this war.
Well, in this case, I'm talking about the battlefield, the soldiers on soldiers. But you could also say that, too, with the cities. The cities are being hit also. So it's a terrible, terrible thing. Somebody said autopan. I hear the word autopan?
I'm just curious.
Because I think it's the biggest scandal maybe in the last 100 years in this country. So when I hear that word, I think it has to be discussed, because the fake news will try and hide it, and we can't do that. But go ahead.
Have you uncovered any evidence that anything specific was signed without President Biden's knowledge or by other people in the administration acting illegally?
Well, I don't think Biden would know whether or not he signed it.
I'm asking if you've uncovered anything.
No, but I've uncovered, the human mind. I was in a debate with the human mind, and I didn't think he knew what the hell he was doing. So, it's just one of those things, one of those problems. We can't ever allow that to happen to our country. The danger our country was in, and I know some of the people that worked with him, radical left, horrible people. And I could give you the name of some of the people that used the autopen, because I'm here, and I ask questions about people that were here also. There are a lot of people that were here when that happened, and they're here right now, and they'll answer your question very accurately. But I know some of the people that use that autopen, and those are not the people that had the same ideology as Joe Biden. These were radical left lunatics that used that, and they didn't get elected. He didn't get elected either, actually. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, and that was the German Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, with Donald Trump in the now customary, almost expectation of it to utterly kick off. How many world leaders have been through that office waiting for the moment where Trump bares his fangs and turns on them? That didn't happen. I tell you what, I think that was a masterclass in understated flattery from the German Chancellor. He allowed Trump to lead the show, and I thought there was a brilliant piece of politics I'm joined by Catherine Forster and Greg Swenson. It's been a long time, Greg, since we've had you here. Welcome back to the studio, of course, from Republicans Overseas UK. Greg, I thought the bit that really leapt out to me was we'd like to contribute to ending the war in Ukraine. And then Chancellor Merz, I think, played the masterstroke. He said, D-Day, the anniversary of D-Day is tomorrow. We know what we owe to you. You helped to liberate us from Nazism. And Donald Trump said that must have been a difficult day for you. That wasn't a good day. He said, no, it wasn't. But it was a masterclass in flattery on this historic occasion to be so humble about you liberated our country from Nazism, and now we'd like to contribute to ending the war in Ukraine. But on general terms, I think Chancellor Merz would be happy to get out of there with that performance.
I think he did a great job. And you're right, it was a masterclass in flattery. I thought, referring to D-Day's the anniversary of D-Day, which is tomorrow, June 6th, and then saying, he sort of switched the momentum and made it a thank you, that you liberated us from the Nazis. It's not America defeated Germany, it's you liberated us. Really well done.
And there's a lot of talk there, Catherine Forster, about Ukraine, about Vladimir Putin, and one particular thing that came up, Donald Trump very eager to take all the credit for Nord Stream 2. In fact, he was saying nobody in this room even knew what Nord Stream 2 was. Of course, it's that giant oil pipe feeding Russian oil to Germany. Billions of dollars worth of the stuff which underpinned Vladimir Putin's war machine. And Donald Trump there pointed out that I was the one who brought it up with Angela Merkel. I was the one who helped to stop it, and admitted there that Vladimir Putin told me when you stop the biggest and most important thing you ever did by stopping that pipe. And then he, of course, said, and people say I'm a friend of Putin. I hit him the hardest.
Yes, and I mean, he did give those warnings, didn't he? And Angela Merkel's tenure as German Chancellor that was so fated for so many years, we look back on that now, but there's some very big breaking news that I have to bring you.
OK, I need to interrupt. We have some dramatic breaking news, some political news. Zia Youssef, the chairman of Reform UK, has resigned. Zia Youssef has resigned from the Reform Party. That's just been announced. We don't have any great details. Catherine Forster has some details. Catherine.
Yes, so Zia Youssef has just in the last few minutes put this onto X, and he says, 11 months ago, I became chairman of Reform. I've worked full-time as a volunteer to take the party from 14 to 30%, quadrupled its membership and delivered historic election results. I no longer believe working to get a Reform government elected is a good use of my time, and hereby resign the office. Now, I think we can safely say that this has happened directly as a result of the row which was triggered yesterday by Sarah Pochin, the new Reform MP for Runcorn, had that question on should we ban the burqas in PMQs. It has caused a huge row within Reform. Lee Anderson came on X to say, I agree with Sarah. Zia Youssef, the chairman, then later said, I didn't know about this question in advance. I've been busy with a sort of doge. And then this morning he said, I've got so many notes here, that basically he thought it was a dumb thing to talk about something that was not Reform policy. And I think it shows they've only got 5 MPs. OK, Zia Youssef is not elected. He's not an MP. But it's caused a lot of problems. And now Zia Youssef has gone.
It's a huge announcement, and once again, I have to say that a lot of things seem to happen with the Reform Party on this show. Sarah Pochin was sat in that seat yesterday, reflecting on that dramatic PMQ where she said, is it time to ban the burqa? It prompted a global conversation. There's been a lot of talk, and Rupert Lowe was quick to leap in, saying, I'm expecting there to be a seat spare next to me on the back bench with Jeremy Corbyn. He was saying, could Sarah Pochin be an independent candidate? Actually, something quite dramatically different has happened. There has been a lot of talk for a long time within the party ranks of there being potentially some sort of frisson between Mr. Youssef, the chairman, and the party ranks. But this has taken everybody by surprise. I don't think this is about that solely about that speech, that debate yesterday. Do you, or is there more to it?
I think that's probably the immediate trigger, because we've seen Zia Youssef's comments, we've seen other people tweeting. It's brought, I would suggest, tensions to the surface that I think have been there for some time. And we saw, didn't we, with the row with Rupert Lowe, who, was booted out of the party and is now exceedingly anti-Nigel Farage in particular. That whole row, involvement of Zia Youssef, there are people that cannot abide Zia Youssef, frankly, and would like to see the back of him. But it is also true that he has had a transformative effect in many ways, in that this party now won that seat in Runcorn and Helsby by 5 votes. They had an incredible result in the local elections. They control 12 councils now. That sort of organisation is something that I think, has happened very fast and very impressively in a short space of time since he's been chairman. But, it's an incredible level of disruption for a party that is as small as it is, with 5 MPs in Parliament.
And a lot of people have been talking about the notion that a small party, the Rupert Lowe incident, undeniably caused a huge amount of turbulence. It didn't seem to affect the impact of those local elections. Lee Anderson, Nigel Farage, others from the party saying it was barely mentioned on the doorsteps, but it did cause a lot of internal factions among the activist base. Parties need their activist base, but again, just to repeat, that didn't impact the outcome of the local elections. Reform are leading in all sorts of polls. And I guess now the post-mortem will begin as to why this would have happened. And it has to be said, Catherine Forster, that a lot of people have been saying that a small party, a lot of big egos, could there be the potential for the wheels to come off? And is that what's happening here? Or is this a shift of power base back towards Nigel Farage? Hey, been interested in Nigel Farage show tonight at 7 o'clock. Will it not? This is surprising news.
It will be an interesting Nigel Farage show at 7 o'clock. Obviously, we don't know yet what the ramifications of this are going to be. We did wonder, didn't we, how much damage the Rupert Lowe row would have, whether it was something that was confined to Westminster. The local election results would suggest that it was something that was confined to Westminster. OK, Rupert Lowe has got a lot of supporters. Elon Musk was pretty complimentary about him. But also, I still think it's the case that there'll be most of the population will never have heard of Rupert Lowe. Also, I suspect most of the population will never have heard of Zia Youssef either, but they have all heard of Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is reform. He is the star, but big personalities, and this is difficult.
Let's just read out that tweet from Zia Youssef. If you're joining us, the Reform UK chairman, Zia Youssef, has resigned from Reform UK. This message on X a few moments ago. 11 months ago, I became the chairman of Reform. I've worked full-time as a volunteer to take the party from 14 to 30%, quadrupled its membership and delivered historic electoral results. But I no longer believe that working to get a Reform government elected is a good use of my time, and hereby resign this office. So lots more still to come between now and 6 o'clock, including should we have to pay for free school meals? There's no such thing as a free lunch. That's next.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through this evening and overnight, further spells of rain, some drier and clearer skies where it'll feel a little cooler, but for many it is going to be a wet start as we head into Friday morning. Back to this evening though, and yes, there are going to be some frontal systems dragging in some rain at times, eventually clearing its way to the southeast, but there is some rain moving across the English Channel that might just push up across some southern counties for a time before it eventually clears eastwards. Then we're left with a mix of clear skies but also further outbreaks of rain just just pushing into the west, leading to quite a wet start across parts of Lancashire, Cheshire and also parts of England and Wales. But across the southeast, Scotland, Northern Ireland, a little drier here and under clear skies, feeling a little cooler and fresher by the time we reach Friday morning. Now, still spells of rain shifting their way eastwards, fairly similar to what we had to this morning, turning quite heavy and once again quite blustery at times. A little drier across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, but still once again can't rule out a risk of showers, particularly around any western areas where it's still fairly breezy through the course of the morning. Now, any outbreaks of rain eventually clearing away quite quickly through the morning. Behind it, a little brighter. Once again, a risk of showers. These could be heavy at times, but it's likely to be a slightly drier day across central and southern parts. A few more sunny spells breaking through, and that means it's going to feel a little warmer compared to this afternoon as well. But across Scotland, Northern Ireland, temperatures around, if not just a touch below average for the time of year. So once again, a little cooler in these areas. And into the evening, we'll still see that continuation of showers moving through into the west, bringing longer spells of rain by the time we reach Saturday morning. And this is something we need to keep an eye on, a chance we could see some thundery downpours on Saturday. That means Sunday is going to be the drier day of the weekend. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, it's 20 to 6, and what a day it's been. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. Now, let's have a bit of a change of pace now, because free school meals are being expanded in England to support low-income families. From September 2026, all pupils whose families claim universal credit will qualify, scrapping the current £7,400 income cap. So is it really the state's responsibility to feed your kids, or should parents take more responsibility and make sure they don't have kids unless they know they can feed them? That's today's debate, and I'm joined in the studio by the political commentator Aman Bagal and the former Labour Special Advisor Paul Richards. Paul, I'm going to start with you. This is the Labour policy. What do you make of this? A lot of people are saying that the Labour Party are very, very under fire for getting rid of benefits, child poverty, being a bit, how do I put it, George Osborne. Is this a quick get-out-of-jail card for them?
Well, it's not quick. It's a well-thought-through policy. It's going to bring 500,000 kids out of poverty and into having food in their tums. And it starts to just reverse some of that child poverty that is so endemic in our society. Also, teachers will tell you it's much easier to teach kids if they are properly fed and that they've had a good meal, and that it helps with discipline and learning and all the rest of it. And to answer your question, is it the state's responsibility? Yes, it is. That's why we're in state schools. OK, well, let's go to Aman Bagal. I suspect you have a differing opinion.
Well, I think I have the common sense opinion here, Martin, and I would say three things. This is about basic human dignity. This is about the parents being able to raise their own kids, feed their own kids, and them having the dignity to do so. This is also about fairness. That, you know what, only those that are most vulnerable and those in genuine need should be given state help. I mean, this removes that cap from $7,400 as income to even those earning £40,000 of universal credit. That surely cannot be right. And the third thing is this is about economic competency. We saw that already with Sadiq Khan extending free school meals to all children in primary schools, irrespective of the wealth of their parents. And that's costing him £140 million a year, which he still hasn't found the money for. Now, that £140 million on a national level in England would cost around £1 billion. That's enough to pay for 32,000 teachers or 6,000 classrooms.
And isn't that the point, Paul Richards? We keep being told the biscuit tin's completely empty. We were told if we didn't get rid of the winter fuel allowance, 1.5 billion, there'd be a run on the pound. And suddenly they found £1 billion down the back of the sofa at Downing Street to put into child meals and £700 million, a U-turn on the winter fuel allowance. Well, that's the run on the pound. I put it to you that this is a Labour Party playing politics, using children to get votes.
Not at all. I think that the fact that the economic situation has stabilised now and that we've had these 3 trade deals, we've had interest rates down now 4 months in a row, we've had big investment in things like the health service and in defence. It's obvious then education is the next thing. And the money is there. It's all funded. It starts in 2026, so it's not straight away. It's not a sudden move. But it does mean that another tranche of kids are their parents will have a bit of extra money in their pocket. And don't forget, that money then gets spent. You know, those parents who are not having to shell out.
So why not let those parents spend that money in the first place, rather than the Prime Minister claiming that he will put £500 back in their pocket? So why not let them keep that money in the first place?
Well, because this is a good mechanism to make sure these children have a free meal.
You're telling me that...
In fact, you mentioned London. I mean, that's a great example of why it should perhaps even be universal. Why shouldn't all kids get the free school meals?
You know, taxpayers pick up the
Well, obviously, yeah, there's no such thing literally as a free lunch.
I mean,
that is true. However, it is an equitable policy.
It's not equitable. This is the socialist state stealing our kids. It's stealing people's dignity, and ultimately it's trying to turn people into clients of the socialist state that Labour is trying to build. Let's be honest.
It's about feeding kids. Come on, it's not really a socialism.
The parents are supposed to feed the kids, not the state. What does the state...
Well, they don't go home for lunch anymore. They are in the school, so the school is feeding them either way. It's just about who pays for it.
Packed lunches are no longer there?
Is there another point here, and that is, isn't it a government's duty to get people off of benefits? If you're on universal credit and now you're effectively getting an extra £500 handout so your kids get fed, it's helping to lock people into benefits dependency. This isn't getting them back to the work. It's making them think, well, why would I get off benefits when I'm getting as much as compared to working, and now a kid gets free food all year?
Well, I don't think you can take it in isolation, Martin. I think you have to look at it alongside other measures to get people into work. And there's going to be a lot more work around now if we get the expenditure going with the defence industries and all these other support for the economy. You know, the Labour Party wants people in work. The clue is in the name, and we do believe in work, not benefits.
So Labour simply isn't working. Here is Labour trying to undermine the whole notion of what a family is supposed to mean, what parents are supposed to do. They are supposed to feed their kids, they are supposed to raise their kids. The state in schools has only one job, that is to provide them with the infrastructure and teachers to teach them, and it's not even able to do that.
But you can't teach a kid if it's hungry and is badly behaved because he or she has not had the food.
You can't turn people as dependents of a socialist state. That will turn what we already see. 52% of people in this country take more out of the state than they pay in. That is unsustainable.
And that's a legacy of 14 years of the Conservatives.
OK, gentlemen, we have to call time there. I wonder if this is another step towards the state acting as parents. Now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello. It's looking largely dry for many places around the Mediterranean through the next few days, but not totally dry. A few showers continuing to affect, Madeira and the Canary Islands, but across the bulk of Spain and Portugal, a fine picture here. A little bit further north, though, some heavy thundery rain continuing to affect areas of France and into Germany and the north of Italy as well. Elsewhere across Italy, largely fine, and some parts of Greece will have some decent weather too. More fine sunny weather to come in the Outlook.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews Travel Destinations Forecast.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
From the roads to the airways, because a Ryanair flight had to divert after a British woman allegedly assaulted passengers and made false bomb threats because, guess what, she was a bit drunk.
Well, security staff were filmed roughly handling the passenger, with the woman at one point forced onto the ground.
So it begs the question, should drunk plane passengers be banned from flying? And that, if you try and get on a plane drunk, they will stop you. So it's not about being allowed to get on the plane in the first place, it's about whether there should be a ban afterwards to stop you flying for several years or maybe even a lifetime.
Well, we're joined now by journalist and broadcaster Sally Mitchell and lifestyle commentator Steve Miller. Morning to you both. And Steve, I know you'll have a view on this one. What do you think?
Me? Oh, I would not ban people. I mean, I would judge. I think it's important to remember, first of all, though, that if you are drunk on a plane, you can end up in prison for 5 years and several thousands of pounds of fines. But I would not ban automatically, because I think you've got to judge the conduct of the passenger rather than if they're drunk. So, for example, someone could get on a plane and then have another drink or two and you know, even sleep, and their snoring might irritate you. But do they really deserve to be banned? Don't get me wrong, if someone is violent on a plane or creates a safety issue on a plane, then yes, I can understand the ban. But an automatic ban, especially for life as well, just seems well over the top. And I also think a ban should not be for life. It should be, you know, a certain amount of time and then it's spent.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 6. I'm Martin Daubney on GB News. It's been a hugely dramatic day in British politics. And as we just brought you the breaking news, the Reform UK chairman Zia Youssef has resigned as chairman of the party. And Reform Party leader Nigel Farage has just posted on X saying this: "I am genuinely sorry that Zia Youssef has decided to stand down as Reform UK chairman. As I said just last week, it was a huge factor in our success on May the 1st and is an enormously talented person. Politics can be a highly pressurised and difficult game, and Zia has clearly had enough. He is a loss to us and public life." Now, moving on, the family of an 80-year-old man say they have no sympathy for the children who killed their loved one. And joining me now is the GB News reporter, Jack Carson. Jack, welcome to the show. We had the ruling coming in earlier on. It was heartbreaking.
Yes, Martin, that's right. The judge today called this a cowardly and violent attack on an elderly man, Mr. Justice Turner, as he sentenced the 15-year-old boy to a 7-year custodial sentence and the 13-year-old girl to a youth rehabilitation order of 3 years. Let's remind ourselves of this tragic story.
A hole that can never be filled because of the actions of two teenagers on that Sunday evening last September. I believe on that day, the two teenagers made a choice. The teenager boy chose to attack my dad, and the girl chose to film him being attacked. They knew what they were doing. I feel angry, disappointed that the sentence they have both received today does not, I believe, reflect the severity of the crime they committed. However, I understand the judge has guidelines, but they have taken a life, and as a result, our lives have been changed forever.
Susan Kohli there, the daughter of Bim Kohli. Now, this case was shocking in so many ways. Not only was this not just one attack on this elderly dog walker as he took his dog Rocky for a walk shortly after 6 o'clock on the 1st of September last year. This was 3 separate assaults, one after the other. One, and probably the most shocking, being that while Mr. Kohli was on the floor, he was filmed by the 13-year-old girl being slapped round the face with a shoe as he lay motionless. The family talking of the screams of their father, their brother, their uncle as they went to his aid. And as just to recap, the 15-year-old boy sentenced to a 7-year custodial sentence today, the 13-year-old to a youth rehabilitation order of 3 years.
Thank you, Jack Carlson, for joining us there. I think the weather is fitting there. The rain falling on a dark day. Bim Kohli, rest in peace. I hope your family find peace. I really do. It's a very, very testing story about the state of the nation, of soft justice, and a 12-year-old filming it. I find utterly astonishing and heartbreaking. I honestly do. Up next is Jubes & Co, 6 till 7 p.m, and 7 course is Nigel Farrell. Just see you tomorrow.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. As we head through this evening and overnight, further spells of rain, some drier and clearer skies where it will feel a little cooler, but for many it is going to be a wet start as we head into Friday morning. Back to this evening though, and yes, there are going to be some frontal systems dragging in some rain at times, eventually clearing its way to the southeast, but there is some rain moving across the English Channel that might just push up across some southern counties for a time before it eventually clears eastwards. Then we're left with a mix of clear skies, but also further outbreaks of rain just pushing into the west, leading to quite a wet start across parts of Lancashire, Cheshire and also parts of England and Wales. But across the southeast, Scotland, Northern Ireland, a little dry here and under clear skies, feeling a little cooler and fresher by the time we reach Friday morning. Now, still spells of rain shifting their way eastwards, fairly similar to what we had to this morning, turning quite heavy and once again quite blustery at times. A little drier across Northern Ireland, parts of Scotland, but still once again can't rule out a risk of showers, particularly around any western areas where it's still fairly breezy through the course of the morning. Now, any outbreaks of rain eventually clearing away quite quickly through the morning. Behind it, a little brighter. Once again, a risk of showers. These could be heavy at times, but it's likely to be a slightly drier day across central and southern parts. A few more sunny spells breaking through, and that means it's going to feel a little warmer compared to this afternoon as well. But across Scotland, Northern Ireland, temperatures around, if not just a touch below average for the time of year. So once again, a little cooler in these areas. And into the evening, we'll still see that continuation of showers moving through into the west, bringing longer spells of rain by the time we reach Saturday morning. And this is something we need